Hello, everyone. Welcome to our January 21st, 2026 Budget Subcommittee meeting. I will call to order. Just want to welcome our special guest, Chief of Staff Ted Langell and Mayor Melise. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we will kick off the meeting with our fiscal year 27 budget planning.
Thank you. So tonight we're going to review high school, including CTE, athletics, Chapman, and Ed Tech. We have principals and department heads here with us tonight. We'll start with, as we have with our prior meetings, we'll just go through what the expense increases are. And then I'm really just going to have each of them speak to any additional staffing requests and answer any questions folks may have. All of these materials are posted on our website. So we'll just bring up our agenda and start with Weymouth High School. So Karen Monahan is here. I think all of our imposters, we've done a 1% increase to the expense budget. And then we rely on our principals and department heads to shift the lines as necessary, but they can answer any questions you have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Principal Monahan.
Does anybody have an issues hearing too? Can you just raise your hand so we know to speak up when you can't hear?
Perfect. We'll speak nice and loud.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so 1% increase is roughly about $2,300. I have allocated that to other instructional services, supplies, and materials. A little bit of it there, and also to consumables, because those costs of goods are also going up. I have decreased our allotment on copy paper because we're not using as much as we have in the past. So that is decreased and shifted up to an increase of about $7,000 in textbooks. We have a couple of contracts that are coming to the end of their cycle, and we will be renewing those.
And then for high school, no additional staffing requests at this time. We'll go over the list at the end here. There are positions that the high school put on last year that still remain in terms of their strategic investment budget. But we'll now ask athletic director.
Can I ask the question here? Do you want to do person to person, or do you want to do do you want questions for high school before we go on to athletics, or keep it all separate?
We can each one.
Yep.
Karen, can you just explain the increase to guidance? What that would?
So the software that we use, where it's an increase on the contract. Sorry, I missed that.
Through chair to you, Karen, can you explain the line item you were just talking about for curriculum? Are you looking to purchase new curriculum this school year?
No, we have some online curriculum that we had purchased 3 years ago and went into a 3-year contract. And so those contracts are up, and so we're renewing.
So there's subscriptions, or
they're
licensing?
Licensing.
Okay, thank you.
Just the high school does have a line for curriculum, but our district-wide curriculum, which includes the high school for like the major content areas, are managed through Lindsay's curriculum budget.
Yes.
Any other questions from the committee? Questions from the public really related to the high school? We can move on.
All right.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you. In looking at our athletics operating budget, with the 1% increase, it's approximately $1,700. Those funds would go towards our contract services and supplies, just with regular inflation that would cover things like league dues, some transportation, individual sport dues, umpires, referees, concussion testing, etc. So just to cover the regular costs to keep our current 33 programs running as is. And looking ahead in adding additional staffing. Again, we have 33 programs at the high school. We are the only school district in the Bay State Conference without an assistant athletic director. So really it's for site administration and game administration, that one person to be the face that's covering any given event. As you know, with 33 programs, it will have multiple events in any given day. In the fall, we saw on home football games, we also had volleyball and field hockey off-site. So that's just one example of how adding this position I can't be in two places at once, so it would just add that extra support just to have that person present to cover those events.
And just so folks are aware, tonight we're focusing on the operating budget. Kristen's done an amazing job of coming in, understanding the budget she inherited, learning, and then building a budget for next year. So the other piece of the athletics budget is the revolving account, but we won't touch on revolving until we talk about user fees at a later meeting. So tonight it's just operating budget, 1% increase for expenses, and then her request, which we'll talk about in a moment, is for a halftime assistant athletic director.
Any questions from the committee? None. Any questions from the public related to athletics? No. Move on.
Great. Next is DP program. We have Director Sam DePina here tonight, and I'll turn it over to.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present the CT operating budget. The fiscal year 2026 approved operating budget comes to a total of $92,736. And, we use this approved budget to support, instruction. And then also if there's any repairs necessary for some of our programs to keep our Chapter 74 programs running smoothly. And then for the 1% increase, which comes to a total of about $927, bring our fiscal year for next year for the proposed budget of $93,663.36. And we will use that total budget for consumable. And in career technical education, consumable really means materials, whether it's wood, ink, supplies that students use in the process of learning or that's simply worn out. So we will allocate that fund to be able to support the instructional materials that students will need. Happy to answer any questions.
Does the instructional software include any upgrades that would need to be done to software for any of the programs, or is it specific to one?
Not at this moment.
Not at this moment. It's
Not at this moment.
Foresee any upgrades needed for any programming that we currently have?
Correct.
Any questions from the committee?
Sam, the $927, is this because we're staying in that 1%? Or is that really going to cover supplies? Enough supplies?
Well, it's going to cover some supplies.
Yeah, so do we get to like December and January, we run out of screws and nails and plywood?
Well, we have some supplies that we need at this moment. And then the 1% for the fiscal year 2027 will be able to buy some additional consumables that we need. Can we use more supply? The answer is yes. But with the $927 will apply to consumables overall for our operating budget. So we'll look at what programs may need additional consumables, whether it's for exploratory or senior projects, and then we'll use it appropriately for each program.
Thanks, Sam.
And outside of the operating, we do have revolving funds. Again, when we talk about user fees. So the example there is Sam's Auto Shop does an amazing job of taking care of cars, what's oil changes. So he has a revolving fund that he can purchase materials and supplies. He also brings in revenue to offset.
That's correct.
Okay, so, sorry.
Mary Ellen?
So through you, Chair. So my concern is that with $937, that this is going to hinder the achievement of our students. Like, how is this going to impact their learning? I mean, there are certifications that they need to get to advance, to graduate. And if we don't have the supplies, how are we going to do it?
I think Brian just answered that one.
So the increase is to a budget that exists, that purchases supplies, materials, licensing. So
those costs are going up too, so it's going to be even less.
Revolving.
correct. So that's part of, and I guess it's probably helpful for the group to know that although we're quickly going through budgets here, each school, each department, there's 20 of them, go through an extensive hearing with the superintendent's office, the executive team. So as I mentioned earlier, Sam, throughout last year and its prior years, might identify a line that he has a certain amount in, but he probably had a surplus this year. So we allow within their budget, the principals and the departments to shift funds around. So the bottom line increase is 1% right now. In conversations with the high school with Sam, the revolving fund is where we go to because we have balances there. That if there is an unexpected cost this year, Sam could tap into that revolving fund to purchase materials or supplies.
So do we have a way of promoting, having more people come in to do the oil changes and things like that? Or is there?
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
way that we can get people come in to cosmetology or whatever? Are we looking at ways to promote that so we can get more funding into the?
Absolutely. And specifically for auto tech, we've seen an increase since the vehicle donation from Subaru, Planet Subaru. We've had increase in our revolving account with not only teaching the students the knowledge and skills so that they feel competent to be able to do the work. That also has increased the outcome for customers coming in to be able to have their vehicles worked on. So yes and yes. Any other ideas to be able to reach out to have more customers come in are welcome. So feel free to share that.
Thanks.
I think Brian answered my question, but I just wanted to clarify, like there's a line, crayons and whatnot. This is all like for childcare, all the supplies, because I'm assuming $500 for crayons wouldn't get childcare through, and this is all through the revolving line. Same with hair color for the hair. Okay, that's just wanted to clarify.
Again, I guess I can't reiterate enough that operating budget line with childcare, we actually bring in tuitions that cover
All of that.
master staff,
Gotcha.
additional supplies.
Okay.
Good question.
While the revenue too, do we look at those costs of product and increase our price for
Correct.
by science? Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Anybody else from the committee have any questions? Anybody from the community? Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just curious, and again, I don't know the funding so much for the CT part of it, but we are now, can you hear me?
Mike Murphy,
Might want to come up.
Oh, I'm sorry. The rules are the same, I guess. Mike Murphy here.
come closer to that.
Yeah, only because that microphone.
You know the protocol, sorry. Mike Murphy, president of WEA. I also work at the high school. So with the building now 20 some odd years old, plus at the CT, especially where you have a lot of expensive machinery and other things in the shops that the kids need that are going to start, if they haven't already, start to break down, wear out, and whatnot. Is there consideration into this coming year about replacing some of these very expensive, very essential pieces of equipment? Like we had things in the culinary and in the wood shop this year that cost a lot of money to replace, that the kids cannot do their work, cannot learn, and it's a safety hazard at the same time if without replacing them. So I'm just curious, is there something in there that we're looking at, another funding source that covers that?
Yeah, so those are all capital purchases, which we wouldn't do with the operating budget. I'm glad Chief of Staff is here because there's been extensive investments. Granted, yes, 20-year-old building and programs, but between capital measures to the mayor's office in the last 10 years, and then state funds. I know Jamie Murphy's earmarked funds that have gone into like the automotive program. So those, we've done extensive walkthroughs of sayings, done a great job of identifying those items that we're prioritizing to replace. We have our advisory, Sam has his advisory dinner twice a year where we talk about those. So to answer your question, Mike, we prioritize a list that's funded with things outside the operating budget because they're big capital purchases.
Okay, just two quick questions on that. Number one, is there a set limit from the town on how much is available in capital funding? And number two, is there a thought to progressing the CTE program in the shops that we already have, not expanding the shops, but expanding the programs in the shops? For example, auto, like you mentioned, there's nobody there certified to do electric cars.
Mhm.
And we have obviously we have cars in the district that are electric. We have people that would like to have the cars serviced by the school, pay the amount, but there's nobody there certified, and they don't have the equipment to do that. So is there thoughts about moving forward with that with any kind of available money? And is that a capital budget? Is that a capital budget consideration as well?
Expanding programs would be capital consideration. We do maintain a capital improvement plan that the chief of staff maintain. I don't know the limit. I mean, Ed could speak to limits, but I think in terms of expanding programs, funding aside, Karen and Sam have talked to school committee recently about, ideas of maybe expanding in the next couple of years, CTE programming. And then feel free to, Karen, if you guys want to just touch on it. But
Yeah, we have applied for a Chapter 74 program for criminal justice. So we applied for the initial phase where Part A, there's 3 parts to it, Part B, Part C, and then the state will tell us the next phase for that process.
Okay, that's a new program. I
That's a new
was just talking about existing programs
Yeah,
that we have.
existing program. So there's no plans to expand or add or any scope or sequencing for any of the programs. that we
Something to consider. Anyway, is there a line item budget for capital money?
Yeah, traditionally, parallel with the operating budget process is the capital improvement plan process. Those instructions went out this week. Believe departments have 3 weeks to return their list of capital requests. They rank them in priority order on that with a cost. And traditionally, we have funded capital through our free cash. That over the last 10 years has ranged anywhere from 2 million to 12 million. So, and we have not certified our free cash going into the capital process, but we should have a number fairly soon, certainly before we finalize. We need to get the capital plan to town council by March 1st. And then the operating budget is mid-April. So the departments have those instructions. We'll be making those requests in the next 3 weeks. And then February 9th, the Friday or the Monday, whatever that February date is. And then we'll see how much free cash, as you know, or if you're, watching, the free cash has been lower each of the last few years. We expect that to continue. So basically it's last year's leftover operating money that gets turned into, free cash. So the FY25 end, they determine how much surplus, if you will, for lack of a better word, we have, and that's certified as free cash that we can spend. And we try to keep it spent on one-time expenses, capital. So the other unfortunate part of that is we also use free cash to bridge the gap in our snow and ice deficit. So 1.5 feet of snow is not going to help the capital budget in the end, because we're going to be using that free cash because that's the one account the state allows a town to deficit spend. So we never increase the snow and ice budget, because if you do, you can't decrease it. So they let you keep it. It's less than, I think, 300,000 or around there. But we can deficit spend it, but we have to balance that by the end of the year or add it to the subsequent year's tax levy. But we've never done that. We've always used free cash to balance that, and then whatever's left over, a large chunk of it goes to capital.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. So we did receive that memo this week. So just so the committee's aware, we have on February 25th to go over capital. So we have the instruction from the mayor's office, and part of our budget hearings with our departments was any capital requests. So that'll come to the committee as it's going through the mayor's process to school committee on February 25th.
Thank you, Brian.
And if I can just jump in for 1 second, I just want people to know that, like, at our ECTE advisory meeting this past fall, Sam was really creative in trying to sell some of the old equipment to be able to give it to somebody else that could use it, and also increase those extra line items and supplies, because we saw a lot of them up for sale. So yeah. He's very creative in trying to find ways of, keeping his budget as stretching it as far as he can with selling old equipment that's been sitting there. So that I do give him, kudos to that. If I may, Ted, for those of people that are new to this whole system, when you say they return money and it goes into the free cash, so is that if the police department put in their budget for a new cruiser and then they were not able to, or it came in lower, that money would go back to the town?
No, it's the operating budget surplus. So whatever's in the operating budget plus other accounts that count toward free cash. I don't know, all of them, but it's the operating accounts including the operating budget. At the end of the year, they determine, and there's some offsets too, if there are accounts like over budget, which, some of them just by nature, at the end of the year. This is something at the end of the fiscal year, whatever the balances are, then it's what's factored in. And then we have to the other thing is we have to spend that free cash by the end of the next fiscal year. And then whatever we don't spend also gets rolled over into free cash. So this year we had a balance in free cash, plus they'll add that to whatever they determine as the balance, our operating budget and accounts, and put that together for a new certified free cash that we have to spend by the end of this fiscal year.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Any other questions from the community related to CTE? I can't see you.
So I'm Heike Tuplin. I'm the WA treasurer. I work at Academy Ave. So just a question for Sam. So you were talking about how you, that some of the programs that you offer, for example, like oil changes and things like that, you allow the community to be recipients of those services. So my question is, on average, do you keep a track on a monthly basis of how many people take advantage of the services that your students provide through the CTE programs?
We do. We have, we have a Google Excel document that's also connected to the UNIS system that the town uses to keep track of all of that. But in terms of to tie it back to your question for a reward system to get more people to come in, or
that's what I was thinking about, because
reinforce with a lot of platforms are doing, such as like Playtronics. There's a lot of systems that are doing partnerships with businesses to increase or give you a reward on participating, or to increase your revolving account. That's where I think that we could connect with the community to be able to bring more people. But then also at the same time, we have to prioritize instruction, because we do have, specifically for the auto technology framework, it is a new updated framework, and this component of the frameworks that we have to teach, make sure students have the certification, but most importantly, have the knowledge and skills so that they become competent, so that then we can offer those services to the public. We want to make sure that when you bring your vehicle, that we're going to be able to fix it, and fix it accurately. So that's the most important thing first.
Yeah. The reason I was asking was because your 1% is only that 927, because obviously your budget's on the lower side. I just want to make sure that, because one of the ways that you said that you can hopefully get, if I understood you correctly, Brian, through that revolving account, if they make some monies through these different offerings to the community with the specialties that they have, that can go into fund some items that they may need to have in order to make sure that their curriculum is there. So I was just wanting to make sure that we're kind of looking at how many people are taking, like how many people do come in for an oil change, how many people do come in for the cosmetology, how many people do come in for, and how much revenue is created, so that we make sure that that very small $927 can increase that, because I don't know if that's enough for an entire year to be able to do this. I'm just concerned about the CTE budget, because that 1% is,
I think it's
a small number.
Absolutely. And I think it's, again, we're focused on the 927. It's $92,000 budget. It's going up $927.
Yeah.
And when we had these hearings, the charge was 1% based on what the memo and what we're trying to achieve here. But if anyone came in and said, I can't do 1%, we would have had that conversation and increase. There might be some instances that we see where some lines came in higher. So I just want to be clear that we didn't say 1%, you can't get any more. If they ask for more, we entertain that for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Heike.
Big feedback, suggestion.
Anything else from the community for CTE?
All right. Thank you to the high school.
Thank you, guys.
Turn next to Chapman, to Principal Jones.
Oh, thank you very much.
Are you sure that's really him?
Hey,
It's like a turn.
it's like all the people I like. You're all here for me. But I'm just kidding here. Other things. So we have the same 1%. It comes out to roughly $1,900. Where we're going to add that in is into our contract services for devices. Chapman's been working with the tech department. We have 10 to 14-year-olds with Chromebooks and I know my daughter's coming up next year, so she's had her same Chromebook since she was first grade. They start to get a little hairy and then a couple drops. So what we're trying to figure out is the best system to ensure that students have devices to use for their instruction in school, opportunities for them to use after school, but then decreasing the chance for them breaking it. We do seem to break Chromebooks at a higher rate than other places. And it has nothing to do with 13-year-olds putting them on their heads. So that's where we added our funds there. Everything else is remaining. Obviously I met with lead teachers this morning. We're always looking at our curriculum. We are a newer school, so we need to, as we grow and as we learn what our students need, what we need as educators, we'll make it, like Brian said, we'll make adjustments, to individual line items.
Thanks, John. Any questions from the committee? Anybody from the community related to Chapman?
I just have one question. Do they take their devices home, or is it something that stays?
They do take their devices home.
Take them home.
Yeah. And credit to Brett and his team. That's something that we've looked into as far as, is there a way to have them stay at school? And we really don't have a feasible way to keep them in school. Just with the 1,200 students in school, they start in homeroom, but they end in a classroom. So it's definitely something that we've looked into. We just feasibility reason.
Do they pay for insurance on them? Does the school system?
We do have a replacement, and now we have repairs, which is, I think, been much better. Broken screen, I believe, is $25. What it's helped with is, those full, I think it's $325 for a full Chromebook replacement. We've had fewer of those. So families are, we can put together payment plans, $25 screen replacement, or a key comes off. That's, a little bit more feasible for a family than $300. So I think that change from the tech department's been really great. And it keeps devices in kids' hands. Because that's a tricky part too, is when something breaks and they don't have it, the educational value is, we worry about it.
Great, thank you.
Marianne, did you have something? Nothing?
Sorry, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. I know it has been talked about getting the services for CTE promoted, not to add stuff to Kelly Power's plate, but could she make an advertisement on maybe social media? Cause I would definitely take advantage. I haven't, you know what I mean? If we can put it out there on socials.
There was one today.
Oh, there was one today.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I wasn't near my phone very much.
And Sam and the teachers in the lab, they're pretty busy with providing services to the public, so I don't think there's this huge void in services. I know anytime you go by Cosmo, this folks, the Wildcat Cafe is always, I think it's good to remind folks in the public, but I don't think Sam's struggling with the shortage of community to provide services for.
Okay, he might not want more people.
It's only so long.
Anything else for Chapman? Go ahead, Gus. Do you want to come up? Actually, you have to come up. You have to come up.
Madam Chair, Gus Perez, resident. Just a comment for context in the conversations about CTE, Chromebooks, everything else. Let's not forget that part of the plan for fiscal year 27 to make up a shortage is the fact that last week you were proposing fee increases across the board, which would also include CTE programs, Chromebook replacements. It hasn't been mentioned yet this meeting, so I just wanted to make sure that wasn't lost in context, that those costs are also on the table in terms of proposed increases for next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Gus. Anybody else from the community really related to Chapman? No. Oh, go ahead, Katie.
Hi, Katie Montero, WEA officer. I guess not just related to Chapman, but overall for all the schools, I don't see, and this could be coming in the next thing, so tell me to wait, and that's okay. When it comes to services regarding mental health services and supporting our adjustment counselors, and is that coming next?
It was last week with student services. presented last week.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, it's more just, you know, providing the kids what they actually need. Student services, yes, but, you know, this wraparound center, that's housed at Chapman, is that a Chapman budget or is that a district budget?
Student services.
That's student services, so what I'm thinking is more like kiddos are going out, there's a lot of crisis that's happening right now, we know this. They're coming back into our buildings and there's no place for them to debrief and besides going back to their, you know, adjustment counselors or whatnot. We need to do better and we need to plan better. And I think during these expense budget planning periods, we need to figure out how to do that by providing for a place for our kids to be able to transition back into the building and have a safe space to do that. And I don't see that in any of these budgets that's been proposed. An increase in staffing the trained mental health professionals. So that may be coming next.
I think it's coming next in our staffing. So when we get into, appreciate the question and the comment. So the clarification between expense budgets stuff is what we're talking about here. In a moment, once we get through Brett, we'll look at the to date what we're looking for proposed staffing.
Yeah, great, awesome,
Thank
you. Yeah, again, like I just wanted to say, you can just tell me to wait. So thank you.
The full question.
And just to clarify, so like wraparound and those are district supports, but the building counselors generally fall under the building, so.
Okay.
They've been walked through and you'll see in some of the strategic planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody else from the community related to Chapman? I'm seeing.
Great. So I'll kick off Ed Tech here. I'll turn it over to my director, Brett Lindholm. Assistant Superintendent Lindsay Fratt, who's not here tonight, has worked closely since she's coming into the role with Brett on this philosophy around Chromebooks. It does have a budgetary impact, but it's really look at the philosophy of we've had great investments from the town in infrastructure, devices, cybersecurity, all these wonderful things. And as Lindsay came in, and she'll talk more next week when she's here with the primary principals about the those conversations around philosophy. But as it relates to the model of devices and the one-to-one at middle and high school, as Dennis mentioned, middle and then high school, the model really doesn't change. But where it does change, and Brett's going to talk about it a little bit, and then Lindsay will expand on it next week with the principals, is the model at the primary school for Chromebooks will be changing next year. So with that, I'll turn over to Brett. As far as Brett's budget's going, he's not asking for additional staff. And again, the same applied to Brett in terms of a 1% increase to the budget. So turn over to Brett and he can talk about the work he's done with Lindsay and what the model will look like for next year.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. We've been working very closely. We talk Chromebooks a lot in EdTech. It's one of our biggest initiatives. Honestly, one of our more successful initiatives too. One of the first things I did when I started here. Obviously, a lot changed after COVID, and we ended up at being one-to-one. Every student having their own device, which is a great resource to have. Lindsay came in, we started doing a lot of collaboration and looking at the cost of running that program, and then our curriculum goals, working with principals, like Dennis said, kind of seeing what made sense and kind of aligning it with the curriculum. And we sort of ruled out the high school and Chapman as far as being opportunities for change. Those schools remain one-to-one take-home model. So we took a look at the primary schools and thought about how maybe we could go back to a shared model, which is what we had when I started here. Carts that students share devices in that stay in the building, which is kind of a key change into next year. So trying to be conscious of what people have gotten used to and all the curriculum requirements, we decided to do a pilot at Seach. And we talked about the biggest reduction or the shared model really applying best to K-2. So we did implement carts for a cart per grade in Seach, K-2. That trial is going on now. It's going very well. grades 3 to 5 would be a cart in every classroom as far as the goal of the program. The idea would be that that those grades could keep their a device one-to-one assigned, but they would keep them in the carts. So the overall concept is to reduction K to 2, stay the same 3 to 5, and then we've allocated funds this year to we've got enough funds to buy about half of the carts that we need, which we plan to buy before the end of budget season. After we do some trials of the carts, we'll buy those, and I think I'm really encouraged as far as how that's going to work next year.
And thank you, Brett. And I think we always talk a lot fiscal at this table. This is really where I'll lean on Lindsay next week. This is really more about philosophy and Lindsay's philosophy on Chromebooks at the very young age for students with devices in front of them. So Lindsay next week when she's here with the principals will speak more to the philosophy and the decisions around this change. So thank you, Brett.
So Brett, for the line items, that's the contract services that was removed from the cost center budgets and put in tech, what does that entail?
Yes, that's our breakage and loss line.
Okay.
Yes, that did live with the buildings. We found it was a lot to ask the buildings to manage that. So we found we're bringing that back in. So thank you for mentioning it. And so Brett will manage that line directly when it comes to loss and damage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I did speak to several parents during the piloting season, and they loved it.
Oh, nice.
Said that they don't have to look for the Chromebook as much, right? The responsibility, the charging, all those things, but they have devices at home. So they don't want their child to say, well, I have homework, mom, and it's on the device. So parents really receive that, taking that out of their hands, the responsibility, but also getting them less on the devices, more engaged in face-to-face. So I really applaud you guys trying to do that, and really, like Brian said, the philosophy of it is perfect.
That's great. That's great
So-
feedback.
For you, thank you. Brett, you said that you have the funds to buy half of the carts. What is the cost for the other half of the carts? Like, what are we gonna do without?
So not gonna do without, $80,000 is what Brett has in his budget. And then Alyssa through grant funding has pieced together the other 80,000. I think it's roughly $168,000 total.
Yep.
To get the Chromebooks.
For all the carts?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanna make sure we have them.
I'm confused. Are we buying additional Chromebooks for those cards?
No,
They?
so
That's just for the cards.
the cart, yeah.
Are they?
That's going to put the
Okay, you can drive them around?
And they are
I've
not
seen children
electric.
try. Yes.
We're going to put the devices in 3 to 5 right in those carts as we buy them, and then we also put the same with K to 2, and then we had obviously some savings, into the pool that assist with refresh
Gotcha.
of the devices. Yep.
Thank you for that.
One more question. When you put them in the carts, if there's an update to Chrome or whatever, Google, it happens while they're in the carts. Is that right?
Yeah.
Software updates
Yep. The updates.
happen.
There's some amount of auto updates that happen, but it's a good question because we will one of the benefits of having a one-to-one is sort of the responsibility and the necessary steps of updating your Chromebook.
Mhm.
So you're right. You're hitting on an area we'll have to add maintenance windows, probably like school vacation, summer. Yep.
Yeah. Good question. Anything else from the committee?
Did you?
Go ahead.
As a mother of a 4th grader, I really, really appreciate this. You know, it is so hard to keep devices and get them not to be on their devices 24/7. And, you know, you hide the tablet and you do whatever you do, put the parameters on it, but they're still using those Chromebooks to get onto YouTube or do whatever, or tossing their backpack and it just lives there. So as a parent, I really appreciate it. And since the initiative has gone from one-to-one, there have been studies that have shown that now it could be correlation, not necessarily causation, but the level of anxiety has increased within students when the younger students having these one-to-ones. I'd be really interested to see what the philosophy is next week. But as a whole, as a parent, thank you. I appreciate this.
Great feedback. Thank you.
Kelly, did you have something?
I just have a question. So if a student does not have a device at home, will we be making alternatives to homework assignments, or will there be a case by case decision made as to whether or not they can bring one home if needed?
Everyone should work with their building principal, because there's other needs that relate to special ed too. So we will make sure that we're making the blanket.
Want to make sure people know that. So.
There's going to be exceptions, and folks should always work with their building principal for sure.
It might be a tough trick for some of our students that, that we support, and I'm sure they'll work with them.
Yep.
One to help them.
Lindsay and Brett have talked a lot about that. And Meg's been involved in that conversation.
Anything else from the committee? Anything from the public related to ed tech? Come on up, Katie.
Hi, Katie, WEA. So what about the sub-separate program? Sorry, I was forgetting who I was talking to. What about the sub-separate programs that they use their ongoing technology for different apps and different things like that? How is this going to affect them?
Probably a question more for Meg. So it's more about the adaptive and equipment,
Yes.
the special ed. Meg, you want to jump in?
So any students that have AAC devices or have technology through AT that still need that device, they would still have access to that. So we may just need to look at kind of what that process is to make sure that if it's something that now they need beyond the one-to-one, that they have access to.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, I know it's a guarantee if somebody has an AAC device that they're going to have it. I guess my question is, when you're putting carts in individual classrooms, well, you also have separate classrooms too. Are you going to give them their own cart, or are they going to then have to travel to that third grade classroom to get their device? When adding additional transitions may be difficult for those students.
That's a great question. And we met with the curriculum team last week and to talk about exactly that. Lindsay and I have been working very closely, looking at the balance of use, the apps that they need, and the devices. And there's a lot of considerations, which is why we did the trial to try to start to understand what the one-offs are, because they have gotten used to that and they do have those needs. So
well, Seach doesn't have any separate programs though.
We're going to continue and do one at Murphy. I'm not sure if I can speak specifically to separate, but I know that the conversations we're having is making sure that all those nuances are accommodated. Okay. I know every building has their own specific needs too.
Right.
The size of the building, the number of classrooms, all the different things. So I think it's a great way to ease into it and make sure that we accommodate everybody the right way.
Brett's chat really is providing the devices, carts. So it's really, I think it's a great question, Katie, next week for the principals and Lindsay, because the principals can speak to the separate program.
Yeah, just to keep that in mind, I guess.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Mary Cuniff, occupational therapist in the schools, and I live in the district. My worry is if we're talking about the kids in separate programs that have their talkers, their iPads that they use for communication, they also have an iPad. We've already had months of IEP meetings, so their IEPs might not specify that they need that other device. So we're gonna look like how we're gonna make sure.
Question to clarify, but I know the principals, we didn't make this decision recently and lightly. We've been talking about this almost for a year now. And so I think it's a great question for principals and for Lindsay next week.
And
we'll make a note to.
I also think that CPAC can help with that. I think they can, communicate with families that if this is a need, if that's particular students, come see CPAC and they can help you navigate through that as well.
Because we're gonna need a lot of amendments because we might have put in writing with that they need this tracing app, but we didn't put in that they need the iPad for the tracing app because they have at the time they had that device.
Our philosophy and initiative, we wouldn't require an IEP to do what's right by kids. You know what I mean? So and that's what I mean. I think Brett's talking about his tech budget and like the kind of the what it looks like at primaries, but I'm confident when we meet next week with the principals and with Lindsay, we can address these questions and concerns. Definitely.
I'll hold my tongue on what the IEP says, because we need everything in the IEP and we can't get it if it's not there.
Thanks, Ms. Mary.
Thanks. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Mike Murphy again. Is there anything, and maybe I'm just missing into this, again, with the equipment getting older, the staff members who have the desktops. How much is going into repair and replacement for those, or is there plans to? I know we spoke last year or 2 years ago, which was starting a pilot program for staff to have laptops so they can move from class to class without issues. And because these things were getting older, is there a number here of replacement and other or repair for the hardware that the staff is using or replacement of them?
Yeah, I'll jump in, Brett, on that. You're talking more about device replacement over a period of time. So we work again with our capital improvement plan. In our capital improvement plan, which you'll see in a couple of weeks, we always have a tech line for replacement of whether it's Chromebooks or iPads for students and staff or desktops for staff. That's part of our overarching 10-year tech replacement plan. So we do have operating dollars allocated for replacing devices and desktops, but that is a bigger capital replacement cycle that since I've been here, it's been part of our capital replacement plan.
Okay, from year to year though, is there a price tag on what they're replacing, how much money they cost the district for replacing, other than going to capital and asking to replace the whole lot? Is there?
So we don't ask to replace a whole lot. So I guess when we do our capital improvement plan, in there is a line for replacing devices each year. And whether it's funded through operating or capital or grant, we try to keep up with that each year. So it's more of a capital conversation than an operating budget, because we wouldn't replace our full fleet with operating dollars.
Okay, so the things that come back, the repairs, my computer breaks down tomorrow.
Yep, you put it.
He has to do something with it.
Yep.
He's not going to capital.
No.
Where's the price tag for that? That's what I'm asking.
That's in this 300,000 number here, 200,000. So as was mentioned earlier, we have now doing a better job with staff we have with tech of actually fixing things in house. So if your computer breaks down tomorrow, ticket goes in, they evaluate it, they repair it if they can. If they can't, they buy a new one. But that's part of the operating budget. But the wholesale replacement of fully aged devices, that's capital.
I figured that. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Good question.
Hi, Trisha Chandler. I teach at Chapman. I think it's really more of a comment, but I used to be here at Adams before we moved things around, and we used to have Chromebook carts, one per team. So before you go out and spend money to buy new carts, I would assume there are at least 10 or 12 somewhere in this building that could potentially be.
We went through and looked at inventory. A lot of those, it doesn't feel like it, but it was like 10, 12 years ago. So a lot of them they were old and fully aged and useful life. So we did factor in. We found a few at a couple of primaries, but we did. Great point.
Okay, just making sure it was checked.
Good question. Boy.
Good job. Love you out of box thinking.
Was there someone else over there that wanted to?
No.
There was somebody else. I think her name's Kent. No, I'm just kidding.
This is a more global question. I noticed all of the expenses in the ed tech budget are sort of like internal ones to Weymouth Public Schools. What about in terms of data recovery, data backup, disaster recovery? Is that infrastructure? Are those infrastructure costs elsewhere? Are they fully borne by the town? Do we work collaboratively with them to address those issues?
So we did get and I don't know if Ted, I can't remember the number. It might have been 2 years ago. We got a sizable capital funding to do a full cybersecurity infrastructure data center backup. I don't know, Ted or Brad, if you remember the number, but we did that 2 years ago.
We did
our 10-year plan.
I recall that. Just a question, Brian, on an ongoing basis, those costs, are they borne by the town? Are they shared with the school department, or?
So tech is separate. So we get funded through the town for our tech budget to manage the softwares and the licensing for the cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Anybody else from the community?
So we'll actually go now to the question about staffing earlier. Let's jump down in the packet again. I apologize. It's small print up here. But now we've come through through ed tech, high school, CTE athletics, Chapman. And we continue to update this staffing request. So for our staff planning, what we've added tonight is the, you see over here under our planning considerations is the 0.5 athletic director. So that's really the only change from last meeting. I mentioned high school and CTE already had positions from last year. They remain on for this year, and that's a CTE teacher and an inclusion teacher at the high school. Nothing that is deemed to be required now, but it was on the list last year. It still remains on the list this year. So this list is in the packet. And we continue to update this list as we go through the budget process. Any questions on any of those positions? So it's really for tonight. The only thing we've added to this list is the 0.5 athletic director.
PTE position, just to ask, is that if this criminal justice program gets pushed through?
Correct.
Any questions from anybody?
I just, a question, maybe comment, assistant athletic director.
Yep.
So we didn't have that before. What was
Administrative assistant, athletic.
administrative assistant? We have one of those though.
She's wonderful.
Yeah. So this will be to help the athletic director so they don't have to go to every single game all over the place.
In part. Yeah.
And
I think the example, could you give the example?
like, what would be the job? Just
If I could add, the state association requires that we go to certain sports, your soccer, lacrosse, football, the high contact hockey, the athletic director has to be there. So your sports, your gymnastics, your indoor and outdoor track, so those off-campus sports, cross country, they don't get as much support in administrative coverage. So this would allow our department to support all of our student athletes and have somebody cover every event.
thank you.
Can you just slow down the district-wide and Dr. Valico, you and I discussed this, but I still have a concern that our BCBAs are being overutilized with what we have for RBTs and ABAs. I do think the BCBA is a priority in the district, and I also think the float ABAs is an extreme priority in the RBT. I'm concerned that with the BCBAs we have in district right now, that's a lot of caseloads to take on without those additional staffs if that does not go through.
So you're asking for more BCBA?
No, I think that's appropriate, but I do think that the BCBA
Advocating for it.
BCBA needs to happen as well as those other additional positions, because I feel like it's a real necessity in the district right now. And I don't think we could handle it if we added ABAs and the RBT without an additional BCBA. I think that would be a significant issue too. Any input from the committee?
Go ahead. I just clarification as to assistant principals. I know we had them. We worked really hard to get them.
Yep.
Then we had to take them away because of the budget situation. So these are the ones that don't currently have assistant principals, which is Academy Ave, Nash,
And Talbot. And
Murphy,
Talbot,
4, and Murphy.
and Murphy.
Yep.
So, how do we advocate for those? What does that look like, adding that position? What has it looked like since we took it away? The caseload evaluations, what is that? Why do we want to support that?
I think if you're not speaking for the principals, but some of it was the size of the buildings and also the programs that exist inside the buildings. So that was kind of the thought process of when we originally added the 5 assistant principals, here 1 at WEC and then the 4 elementaries. As you can start to see, there's advocating happening, right? So we're still not done with our budget presentations. We still have the elementaries, but what you're hearing is advocating for the needs, right? So these are the things that we're asking for in the future above and beyond of what we have right now. And Danielle had advocating for ABAs and BCBAs. Tracy is now talking about assistant principals. So this is all part of our process.
of advocating for what you'd like to see added into our budget would be on top of level service.
And honestly, it's educating. Why do we need assistant principals? Like, I want to know why. Why is that?
I'll be here next week.
Yeah, and I think that's when we will talk about they're on the list, so they can walk through. Because they did have them for a quick year and then they lost them, so they can be able to explain that.
Great, thank you.
I was gonna say, so it's a nice segue because I want to revisit the scenarios, talk about these positions, and then been super patient. The mayor and chief of staff are here because they're also, they want to touch more on the revenue side of the budget process. So just on the expense side for the schools, I'll bring up, let's see. Yep.
Can I go back to the 0.5 assistant athletic director? Will that person be here during the school day, or are they just for the events after school? Like the 0.5.
Yep, that would be more of an afternoon position. So that would be like a late morning, early afternoon start throughout the evening.
Okay, thank you.
So just to bring us from last week and catch us up, we talked about 3 budget scenarios, and has always been as long as I've been here, as long as working with Mel and Ted on budget. So school committee's goal has always been level service. We always said the level service plus, and that was the positions that we've talked about that we'll look at in a moment. But as we look at our scenarios, it's based on current revenue projections of 1% budget, level service budget, and then our strategic investment budget. That's everything that we've added that, the athletic directors on that, the assistant principals are on that. So just to, again, last time, folks that weren't here last time, just taking us in a brief history of funding since 2016, so really the last 10 years, you can see our funding increases. So we average about 4% a year, I think, and Ted will, I think, touch on this. I think this first year, 16, 17, there might have been a supplement to the 16 budget, maybe. So it's been, roughly 4% a year. You can see our growing FTEs, the staffing, and then our changes. And so, we've added roughly 20% in staff. But we talk about how there's been a cut the last 2 years. There has been a cut, but simultaneously we've had to add positions. So we've really been reallocating a number of resources, and we talk about these positions all the time. So as we get into, and again, we'll revisit this throughout the budget process. So you look at over history, enrollment's gone down. We're seeing enrollment flattening, growing slightly recently. And then as it relates to our budget, each year we do a forecast. And so for this year, we forecasted a level service budget, but that level service budget also includes positions we've added this year and a projection of positions we have to add next year. And so when we did that, our initial proposed level service budget was about 5.27% above last year. So you're talking $4.8 million level service, including positions we've added and positions that we're projecting that we have to add. And so here are the positions we've added. So we've added positions this year. We've had to add positions this year. And this is just a list of those positions. Any staff that are here are probably familiar with some of these positions. We've had to support Chapman, Hamilton, Pingree, Seach with positions. So these positions we've added this year are part of that level service budget next year now. We found a way to add them this year one time and then build it in next year's budget. That's all part of level service. And then in addition to that, we look at what we just talked about, the adding of positions within level service for speech, for our Hamilton CP program. Nash is adding a grade 1 because we have 3Ks moving up to grade 1 next year, and West Augusta. So those positions, in addition to level service, we've added positions this year and we project to add positions next year. That's how we get the level service. And now, as we talk about revenues, which I'll turn over to Ted in a minute, the initial conversation through mayor's office to the provinces, build us a 1% budget, which we have done here. And that's where we look at what a 1% budget looks like, increase over last year. And that's where we started to talk about if to maintain level service, we have these positions, this amount, and then if revenues to support are 1%, that's what we've been looking at reductions just to address the shortfall in funding at this point in time. So with that, and we can take questions certainly after this, but I think if you might segue to turn it over to Ted, if you want to jump in.
One question before we turn it over to Ted. If we're in full transparency and complete bluntness, if we are looking at 1%, what is that with reductions of FTEs?
I could speak to that a little bit, Danielle. Part of that exercise, we were asked to prepare that budget. And so we did with all of our schools, executive team here. We did a rough estimate of what that would look like at 1%. And being from this district, being here for close to 25 years, it moves us backwards quite a bit. It moves us back into the, 08, 09, if any of you were here during that time, which is a tough place to even think about being because of all of the work that we've all done. Everybody here that's in this room, I don't want to get into like all the specifics, but it would move us quite a bit back in time.
So we wouldn't know what FTEs because based on part-time.
Yeah, and we're super early in the budget process. I think we are trying to be super proactive. This team is trying to be as thoughtful as we possibly can. And to do that, you have to start early. You really have to start preparing. And this team's preparing like worst case scenario. That's what we just did. But now, as you see in this process, we're going through the needs of all of our schools. So this takes time. We're not even finished with all of our cost centers presenting what they need for next year. So this is part of the process. At the same time, we're also looking what if along the way. And there's a lot of things you'll hear Ted explaining all of the things that we need to understand before we start to get to numbers and what this truly looks like for our district. I'm not a person that wants to set panic into anyone. I want to know the facts. I want to understand what's happening. And at the same time, being transparent because, our biggest priority is, I say it all the time, your livelihoods, your careers, our children. We're considering all of those things, but it also takes time. And I know people kind of want answers, but we really do have to follow this process. And we're just doing all of the prep work. And I think what I appreciate more than ever is all of you being here and that we're able to kind of do this all together as opposed to just showing up in May and saying, here's what's happening, So I really do appreciate you all being here and being a part of that process. And I thank the mayor and the chief of staff for being here. As you can see, we are all in this together. We are all trying to find the best scenario for our schools.
Do we have a contractual obligation to notify?
Yeah, there's contractual times that's very well into the future.
We're having conversations with the union about all that. So we again, Mel, we'll touch on at the end of the meeting here, we'll touch on timeline and where we are on the timeline. But as Mel mentioned, we're actually weeks ahead where we were doing the same exercise last year. So I think, it's our third year doing this and I think we're getting better with it. So I just want to turn it over to chief of staff now.
Thanks. So the mayor and I are here, for exactly what just discussed, transparency and really team effort. And that's not just the mayor's office and the school committee, but all of our departments. We had a department head meeting earlier today over the same thing. The thought behind and what I'm here, what this shows is a breakdown of why we're starting out with a 1% request. We're not here. We're here to share information. We're not, making it up. These are the numbers and the projections that we're looking at, and they're not pretty. And we've enjoyed a good run of 10 years of a lot of new revenue, but nobody should also be surprised because for the last couple of years, at least, we've been telling folks that it's getting tighter and tighter and things are going to slow down. But I would still say when you look at our worst case scenario, we're still in better shape than a lot of other towns. And we have a light at the end of the tunnel with Union Point, which what I tell people over and over again is there is a light. They actually just came in, they just submitted their first subdivision plan for Union Point. Once that starts going, the revenue starts growing again. So it's important to note there is a light at the end of the tunnel that gets the revenue back in the right direction. I just don't know how long that tunnel is yet. And then that's the big question. So we need to find, the Band-Aids, if you will, between now and then, when then it's the recurring revenue has returned. And that's a real future for us, is that the state, just again, for background, the state has invested $35 million for us for the infrastructure needed to redevelop the base. So they're not giving us $35 million for it to fail. And now they're looking for the money to pay for the water pipeline that we need to bring the Inverberry water here. And that's, again, on the state and the developers to pay for, not the town.
I just have a quick question. When you talk about growth at the Union Point, are we talking housing? So we have to worry about more students in our.
Yeah, but that's all new revenue.
How do we balance?
No, but it's all the new revenue is going to go into the what we have now and the new stuff. So we're gonna what we
worried that we're struggling supporting our students now. If you add more housing.
But it also is going to add $12 million a year in tax revenue.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's not all that's going to go into supporting what we need for a growing community and recurring revenue to keep pace with what that costs. That's what that's going to provide. So that's built in there. That's part of the challenge then, is making sure we're managing the increase in revenue. So trust me, that's part of the plan is knowing we need more of everything. When that's fully built out, we need more public safety, we need more schools, we need and everything in between. So it's more of everything, but that new consistent tax revenue is there to support that. But in the meantime, we're getting starting with, even before anything's built, all the new building permit revenue, which is a lot of what we saw over the last 10 years, was building permit revenue is starting. So when they do the subdivision, when they start that, it begins with building permit revenue. We could see new building permit revenue within a year up there. So it's going to start soon. It's just a matter of how quickly it grows up there. And then fully out, it's, like I said, about the estimates are at least $12 million a year in new tax revenue. And that
the first slide development that they were talking about, there's a 55 and over.
Yeah,
that was the one.
Perfect.
Yeah, and some the commercial component's huge up there. We want to expand the tax base, but it's it's building permit revenue, new growth. It's going to be higher excise taxes because there's more cars for that housed up there, more people going to eat, and so it's all the taxes and permits that are going to be increasing once that starts. And again, similar to the last 10 years. Just for some background on that and the challenges we face is when you look at the last 10 years and revenue growth, Prop 2.5 alone over the last 10 years provided about $28 million in new tax revenue. So that's like basically an automatic, what I mean, because we do 2.5 every year. And so for the last 10 years, that was $28 million. On our own, through those other things I just talked about with the growth and raising certain fees, we raised the trash fee 2 years in a row. We readjusted all of our other fees that hadn't been changed in decades. With all that, we created new revenue beyond Prop 2.5 of another $28 million. So internally, and that's why you've had 4.5% average increases in the school budget and across the board with all the departments and the growth we've seen to make that up. But the struggle, and you'll see it here when we talk about next year's budget, is of that $28 million that we created in new growth, 14 million of that went to two expenses. healthcare, and state assessments. And so even when we do, the challenges are still there, and those are the challenges that exist when we look at FY 27. And when you compare it to the last 2 years, you see on average, we've done good, over 4% in new revenue in recent years. Right now, FY 27 is projected to be 2.7. So that's a difference of new revenue of 8.3 versus 5.7. So that's the amount of new revenue we're talking, and the difference, and the big factor going from 26 to 27. You'll see in the middle of the page there is new growth revenue. As it turns out, FY 26 was our highest new growth to date, with $2.7 million. The assessors are telling me we'd be lucky to get a third of that in FY 27, because all the big projects in town that we've been doing last are done and fully built, and it's a lot of the smaller projects that are left over. So right now we're using 950,000 as an estimate, and again, that comes from the assessors. I'll know it's actually around Valentine's Day that I get. Last 10 years, it's been a nice treat, but in 27, I'll get the assessors give us a range, a low and a high, and we usually pick somewhere in the middle, and it's usually been pretty accurate by doing that. So when we budgeted 2.7, I think it came in a little over 2.7. So it's a pretty accurate system. So in a few weeks, we'll have that number. That will tell us a lot. If it's a little better than that, that's going to be great. There's a potential that it could even be less than 950. But that's what's slowing the overall revenue growth, is the decrease in new growth. The other thing is as I said, we've done other things to increase the revenue over the last few years to address the growing needs in town. And one of those things is, again, the fees. So we've already increased the trash fee, 2 years in a row to bring it. And all that has actually done is bring it closer to what it costs. So there was a huge deficit. No, and there's still about $1 million short on honestly with the revenue collected in trash fee and the budget. But the last 2 years, we have increased that by $3 million in new revenue. So that isn't factored into 27 because we've already done it. So that option may not be there. So between those things, that's why we're looking at the 2.7, which honestly isn't it. I don't know how else to say it. We've been spoiled over the last 10 years. That's not normal. Municipal finance budgets is 4 or 5%. That's not normal for municipal budget growth. So 3% is what most towns start with and have to work with. And right now we're at 2.7, but we have to worry about ourselves and not other towns. But even with that, and just put some perspective here. So with a 2.7%, which is moderately healthy revenue growth, that's $5.7 million in new revenue. You just saw on the last slide, the school level service is asking for 4.8 million. So we're projecting 5.7 million in new revenue, and your level service budget would be an increase of 4.8 million of that. So that's the problem.
Thank you.
That's not realistic or sustainable. But when you look at the 5.7, and then the last 2 years, the big hit we've taken is health insurance. 2 years ago was 11% increase. Last year was 8.3. Every percent increase in health insurance is $300,000. We're over a $30 million budget now in health insurance. Every percent is $300,000. That's a lot. So we're estimating right now 9%.
And when do you know for sure what that percentage is?
February, March.
How do you?
GIC votes on it.
When does the GIC usually?
It'll be February, I think. And
So how can you really budget if you don't know that number until March?
right now it's historic.
Okay.
Like the last 2 years, we were 11 and 8.3%. We hear,
So you just.
yeah, we talk to people up there and, are we looking at the same? Are we looking at better, worse? And no one's telling us that it's not going to probably be the same. They are trying to do things to save money
I've seen.
on their end. So there's some hope that it's less than that. But again, we enjoyed, and for different reasons, a lot of it was actions, in our HR department where they very actively got employees to switch plans that were cheaper for both, but provided, the equivalent level of service. So years after that, so we were used to like 3% increases and, and sometimes, flat because of that. So again, that wasn't normal when we were, and then, 11 and 8 shouldn't be either. It should, somewhere between might be, normal. So, but if it ends up being 5%, we have another $1.2 million to spend because it's, 300. But if that ends up being 12%, then we have $1 million more we have to find. So,
And I feel like, I know like a lot of other districts are waiting for that number, what that is going to look like. And we heard just recently that Plymouth was in a $1.1 million deficit because of the health insurance. I just don't want to be in that same surprise.
no, and again, because if you look at that right now, $5.7 million in new revenue, 2.7 of that would go to healthcare with our estimate. And last year was a big, last 2 years was a big chunk too, and which is why we had to find those other. We had the new growth revenue, but then we, found the other revenue and fee increases and such. And if you look at the other fixed cost overall, I'm actually projecting state assessments to only increase by 5%. That would be lucky. But again, that's historical right now. And so we're hoping it's pretty close to that. But just fixed costs, those fixed costs alone are 3.8 million of the 5.7. And so that's where we're left with under $2 million for department expenses. And so that's where the 1% comes from, is the remaining new revenue after fixed costs or estimated fixed costs. Some of those we know what our debt service is. We know what our retirement costs are. The debt service could change if we go out to borrow more in this year's budget. And so that's where the 1% comes from. And again, the challenges right now, and maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 years, hopefully closer to 2, is the new growth dip. That again, hopefully when projects start ramping up, that we get back to our $2 to $3 million amounts that we've had the last 10 years. We need. And state aid to at least not hurt us. When you look at total receipts for state aid the last 10 years, it's only averaged 2%, like total receipts. When you factor in the assessments to that, when you talk about net receipts is less than 1% increase annually. So that is about $230,000 net local aid on average a year. So obviously that's not paying for a lot in our school system or town. And like I said, those two things, healthcare and state assessments, have eaten up half of our, beyond Prop 2.5, half of our new revenue, just those two things alone. But the reason we're starting here is, and I'm it is the worst case scenario. So, and the philosophy here is now we're going to be able to, in each department and the schools, we're going to identify what's at stake, in each department if this comes to fruition. And then now for the next 3 months, because the timeline is we've started earlier than usual because we knew the problem will be bigger than usual. But we have about a little under 3 months to think of solutions and wait for and hope for some good luck. Things like the snow was not good luck because we could use that free cash to offset some of the expenses, and now it's not going to be there because it's snow and ice deficit. But we are, this new administration, a new sense of review, if you will, during this budget, a much deeper dive into each department, and we're looking for efficiencies with each of these departments that we told them again today about that. So their 1% budgets, as well. We're also looking at efficiencies through technology, not just short-term, but long-term savings. But we are looking at, a department level review of any sort of efficiency that we can create. And not just for now, but when that new revenue does start coming in, that it lasts longer or is spent more efficiently. And so we'll continue to look at other ways to generate revenue over the next few years as the Band-Aid, but then when the new growth starts going up again, creating those new revenue sources that will be bigger when more growth starts to hit the community. So that's where we're at now. Again, it's really early stages of the process, but it's certainly in the last 10 years was the worst starting point. But we're working hard again to find those short-term solutions and, working even harder for the long-term solution with, Union Point and that new revenue, and making sure that, the state and the developers are, most of that development is on their dime, not the towns. And that's going to save the ratepayers a lot of money. That $35 million would have been, water fees for the ratepayers if the state didn't chip in. That $20 million pipeline would have been ratepayers if we didn't sign something that said it's the developer's responsibility, not ours. So all that's, saving the ratepayers. And so doing that makes other things more comfortable, like raising the trash fee. And again, we're not looking for profit, in that sense for these. We're just looking to recoup what it costs to provide those services. And so that's what we've done with the trash fee. And I think a lot of people have understood that because the last 2 years we've done that. We haven't heard a lot of pushback or complaints about that. But again, we've kind of maxed that out the last 2 years. There's still maybe a little room. But, is 28 going to be worse or better? That's the other thing we need to figure out too. And I'm hoping, if they're starting to come in with subdivisions that, it starts to look better sooner. But nothing's guaranteed. And so we just have to keep working at it.
I do have a concern about the Union Point. I have many concerns about Union Point, but my one concern is that geographically that hits 2 schools. So that becomes a bigger problem. So if we're running into space, yes, we may get tax revenue from that, but that could mean redistricting. That could mean that's more transportation in another school. That's a significant concern.
Yeah, and we'll probably need another public safety building too.
That too. I just hope we look at things fully before we say like, oh, this is successful. Also, we've seen issues in the past with builders that didn't fulfill their projects. So is that a concern in the future?
It's certainly, but yeah, I mean, it's hard not to think of that, especially the last, 10 years with a couple of them but I don't, the state is invested now though. That wasn't the case before.
Okay.
I mean, $35 million just to pay for the infrastructure. Their issue is housing, and that's why they're invested in it. They want more housing. And this is more housing, and they're committed to it. Lieutenant Governor, we've been with her at least 6 times in the last 6 months.
Down here, 3 times.
Yeah.
So she's committed.
They're committed to it. Like I said, they wouldn't invest 35 million if they weren't helping us find a way to get to the end. We're first in line for the water. Our application is ahead of every others. That there's a savings there too because they waived the entry fee for the first 20 million gallons that they use, and so we're in line to get that savings too. So yeah, there's a lot more things aligned this time around with these players than the past, and luckily for us, we know what to look for. The warning signs of something not happening, and so. But yeah, it's still a flashback. It's still, not, the most comfortable always because you always have that in your background, like, oh well, we've heard that before. But this feels different. Again, the state investment, the developers' commitment. Once in a couple of weeks when they sign the agreement with the SRA. We get $11 million from them in sewer and water mitigation money to help, offset some upgrades that we need as well.
Is that split between Tri-Town?
No,
that is solely.
That's us. Yeah.
And we will be working with the mayor's office. We talk about a statement of interest. So any kind of projections of enrollments that would be increasing, we'll look at next year, right? So when Ted's saying that the state is invested, that's where we'll start to look at that. People have asked about the Johnson building, and this is why we're taking our time. We're looking at Johnson. Is that something that is really something that would add to our population, or is it something that might not be in the right location? All of those things. So we're working all in all of that, and we're letting all the pieces start to fall. But we are thinking through that.
So Ted, out on social media, and I don't know how true it is, there was talk that you were thinking about possibly taxing property tax for residents higher than the businesses. Is that something that might happen? Right now, I think, and I may get this wrong, I read that businesses pay a higher rate than residents. And it was out there saying that should be flip-flopped because we would make more money. Is that something that could happen, or is that something that?
That's nothing we've talked about. There is every year when we set the tax rate, we discuss the shift between, and right now it is shifted minimally toward businesses. We think it's fair and equitable, but depending on how the values come in, we may have to shift it to offset, if housing values go up too much while businesses aren't, and we might shift it a little more to the business so it's cheaper for that. It's more of those kind of decisions than more taxing, residents more than businesses. It's more to
tax rate. It's just the valuation of the car.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna get hit either way. So it does, but I was
We still
curious.
have the lowest single family average tax bill on the South Shore.
But we have the best school system, so.
We have the best of a lot of things. Yeah.
Okay, questions?
Go ahead, Cindy.
Sorry, just a quick comment, not to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to follow up on the union point. And I'm sure that, Mel, you've thought of this, but when we are doing the planning and we are advocating for what the needs will be, and whether or not, which I'm sure we will need a new elementary school at minimum down there, that there's some thought put into the growing pains, that I'm sure the students will slowly begin to move into the area. And then I see Hamilton and Nash and whatnot getting more and more crowded, so that there's some forethought put into place in regards to how we'll handle that. So we're not maybe, poor Nash does not have 6 trailers in the parking lot or whatnot. We wouldn't want to get to that kind of situation.
We're moving sub-separate programs every other year.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge challenge.
Huge challenge,
in that we don't know what's needed. It's just having the people in place that are going to manage the growth properly, and that's going to be the key. Is we know we're going to have all this new revenue,
but we need to manage it. We need to understand the needs. Because and just to put some perspective, so you see the difference here in like just our current budget, the 5.7 versus 8.3, that's only, a couple, 3 million, not only, but you know what I mean? It's only a couple, three. So of all the new revenue, there isn't, the majority isn't needed to fill this gap. It's going to be used to fill the new needs. But that's going to be a management and staying on it and understanding it, and that's where the collaboration is in.
And I do think that you've said you've predicted, you're doing what's going to happen. And I think that you did a good job of explaining, like, they're going to start pulling permits now because we need the help now. We can't wait for 10 years. Those kids are going to graduate or not graduate. We don't want, I think that's great to know what the long-term positive outcome is going to be, knowing that the permits are going to be pulled sooner in the short term so that it can help the town grow and fill in the gaps. That's nice to know that information.
But there's no doubt, because I don't want to sugarcoat it either. I mean, I don't know if it's, again, 1 to 4 or 5 years, there's going to be some pain in between. And our job is to limit that collectively, not, right. So it's our job to limit that and plan for the return of whatever we lose. You know what I mean? And that is a situation that I don't think any other community is lucky enough to be in. It's not realistic to think you're going to go every year meeting all of your needs. It's just, that's not reality. And I think we're in a much better situation than a lot of other communities.
Yep. Thank you.
Danielle, thank you, Ted, for that, because it does feed into what we've been talking about, just that difference between what the different scenarios that we've painted here, right? So again, our goal is always level service. As long as I've been here, we always talk about level service. And then, as Ted mentioned, it's kind of that early stages of worst case scenario. And Al mentioned earlier, it is talking about, as Ted mentioned, what's at stake here. So as we go through this process, what's at stake between a 1% budget and a level of service budget. So with that, I just want to talk timeline, because again, early stages we've talked about. So where we are now is January 21st. So February 4th, we have our preliminary budget. Historically, there's our level service budget. We'll have the scenarios built into that. We're back here February 4th, and we'll have the primary schools here with and Assistant Super Lindsay Fratt will be here as well. And then as Ted mentioned, once we get into February, we start to learn more about numbers. Ted will start to learn more numbers. We'll continue to have our conversations here. So I don't know anything else you want to add, but that's kind of where we're at tonight with information.
No, I just want to add, when you guys are doing this budget, that it's important to look at enrollment, yes, but our student needs has really significantly changed within the past, I would say, year, but significantly within the last 5 years. So while enrollment might go up and down, our student needs is significant right now. And I just hope that you both understand that. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I just want to state that, our administration's very pro schools, Weymouth schools. We're as committed as you are.
Thank you.
We want to make this work. Since I came in July, we have on the calendar once a month that we meet with Mel and Brian. We go over everything. We talk about things, so we know what's going on. I've been out in the schools to see what's going on. We're committed. We're going to do whatever we can. We're all in this together. We want to work through it, and we will work through it. But like Ted said, to echo Ted, I mean, we're in a good spot here in Weymouth compared when you look at the surrounding towns. When you look at Braintree, Quincy, Marshfield, what they're going through. We're doing good here in Weymouth. We want to keep doing good. I have a great team. Ted's working very hard on this. TJ's out here. TJ's over here in the schools too. So we're out. We're committed, and we have an open door policy. We want to keep it like that. It's something that was lacking for a long time in different administrations, but we want to make sure. We want to make sure, that we all work together. We all have the same goal.
I agree, and I feel like the lines of communication has been excellent between your office and our office, and it's a different feel. It's not a great one where we are, but communication wise,
It's all about communication, you know, it really is.
And I think if you look at that graph from earlier where it showed enrollment and the budget, I mean, we didn't base your budget on what your enrollment is, and then you can see that because the enrollment was declining sharply and your budget was increasing
I think that
sharply.
in the past, that's been a hot topic. I don't think that's a issue at this table,
Yeah.
but I
No,
think
but
that's definitely been.
The last 10 years, yeah.
So I do have a question and I hope it comes out correctly. So we're looking at 3.9 million in reductions. Are the other departments looking at a significant amount of reductions? Like, are they gonna be losing staff? Are they gonna feel it as much as schools are? You know, we have this huge population. It's the biggest department in the town. So
Yeah, it's a percentage. So
the percentage, but their budget is different than our budget.
the worst case scenario for other departments, and I mean it's the starting point. So I don't want to say it like it's the end result.
Right, and I don't want to be
But
saying it like it's the end
the
result,
worst
but-
case scenarios would be personnel cuts across the board. And significant ones in the bigger departments.
Yeah, I just.
Go ahead. You go first. You go first. Can you just, when you talk about the, that like your fixed expenses, your two biggest expenses are healthcare and state assessments. By healthcare, do you mean the healthcare that you pay for employees? Okay, and can you talk about the state assessments? Like, I don't really know what that means. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not a huge number. It's the growth that is the issue. I think it's up around $8 million now, but it's grown by over 150% in 10 years. And so we get hit on that. That's actually one of the assessments is charter school tuition. So, and that goes, you know, kind of up and down, but it's a lot higher now than it was, you know, before. So that's on the cherry sheet. So so the state aid is what they call the cherry sheet. So you get the revenue part of it, which is Chapter 70, and the unrestricted local aid are the two big ones. And then you get, you know, some other stuff thrown in. On the other side of that equation are the expenses. So what we have to send back to the state for charter school tuition, for MBTA assessment, for those sort of things. And so when you look at that, the state assessments are growing faster than any other line item in our budget by far. And the other side of the equation on the local aid aren't growing by that same number. So that's when you talk about that net local aid, it's under 1% average, you know, a year. And that's the problem. But we say it all the time. So it's like sort of just something we have to live with because we don't see it changing. But a big difference in last year's budget, because we're, you know, a minimum aid community like 200 plus communities, you know, so we don't get the big Chapter 70 increases because we don't meet the criteria, which again, the great majority of the towns are in. So it's that per student that they do that we look for, and that's been as, you know, low as recently $30 a student, which is laughable, but and it still doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was a few $100,000. They put it up to 150 last year, which was the highest since I've been here. And that, you know, that couple $100,000 helps. So those little decisions, even though it's not huge, that's a couple $100,000. That's a couple jobs or you know, or whatever the priority we describe. So it's those decisions that are still important, even though history isn't big growth. It's still important to make those other decisions that at least incrementally help us. You know, and that's what I call like kind of getting lucky every year. We can plan and plan and plan, but I also have to, you know, we can manage the hell out of the budget, and I think we've done a great job. But if we don't get also lucky in a couple of, you know, and one thing to get lucky about is snow, honestly, during the winter. It's, if we get, in the last 2 years, we got lucky. We didn't have a lot and it's no expense. We had free cash to spend on other things. And the other lucky thing is local aid.
Plus, we're talking to a room full of teachers that want a snow day Monday.
Yeah.
So a state assessment.
We'll come, me and you.
Yeah.
We'll show up anyways.
Yeah.
Actually, the mayor's actually going to the state address tomorrow. And so he'll be on the State House,
State of the Commonwealth tomorrow night.
yeah, telling them what, exactly that, telling a lot of them exactly that. So he'll be, face to face with a lot of them tomorrow and pass those needs along.
That's amazing.
I'll be missing.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I'll be missing.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to understand what a state assessment is. Does that make sense? Like, so is it literally when the state comes in?
No, for example, it would be the MBTA. So we're an MBTA community. We have to
Right.
track. So they charge us an assessment for that service or for having.
Oh, okay. They charge us like a
An assessment.
fee to do
Yes.
the assessment?
Yep.
Okay.
No, the assessment is the fee we pay.
Okay, I see what you're
Paying
saying.
rent.
Okay, okay.
But they also, on the revenue side, there's a thing called state-owned land. So if there's any state-owned land in the town, they send us money in lieu of taxes for that. So that it's both ways. There's a revenue side of it and an expense side of it. And interactions with the state.
Kelly.
Go
ahead, Kelly.
Are you done?
Oh, sorry, you can go and then you go and then
Are you
I'm
sure?
yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. Okay, I just wanted to make a comment. I just want to say that the level of service budget, which is what we need to maintain what we have now, I don't really like the word level of service because it feels like a disservice. Our teachers are struggling right now, never mind next year. They're stretched thin. There's not adequate support. I know Dr. Verlico talked about at one of our former budget meetings, and I know Danielle also referenced it, like the needs of our students are changing. And, we really need adequate support, mental health, behavioral support. And I just want to thank all the teachers in this room that keep showing up for our kids, despite the conditions and despite not always feeling that support. I just want you to know as a parent, I appreciate that. But I am concerned when we have these positions and we are stretching our staff so thin. And sometimes like we might have like a BCBA. I know we had talked about, Danielle alluded to that as a priority for her. It's also a priority for me because we spoke about how 2 of our BCBAs are currently assigned to 3 buildings. So when a student is in need of support, and they're driving from another school, possibly far away, that's concerning to me. And, there are other things that stretching this staff impacts. Like you try to have an IEP meeting and it might get rescheduled 3 or 4 times because your OT, your speech teacher might be assigned to 2 or 3 schools. So that's what we're seeing right now, never mind with less of a budget. And so that's just, I don't know. I just want to just put that out there so that the community understands, like they're already struggling. And, I'm just concerned. So I would like to see us increase our level of supports for our staff and for our students, because when we're supporting our staff and we're offering them adequate supports, in return, our students are supported. So
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, I'll open it up to the public. Mike, did you want to come up too?
Hi, Nick Murphy again. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor. Historically, he has been pro-education through his time at the town council, and we are really looking for that same kind of support as mayor, and I appreciate you're a townie, and I appreciate that being a townie, that you offer that when you can. I also have to say I do take some exception to the word that we've been spoiled for the last 10 years. We have not been spoiled. I'm sorry. Weymouth has been traditionally and still is on the low end of the totem pole of per pupil expenditure and net school spending. This town has woefully not looked to be proactive, but to be reactive to the situation. We are not a poor town. And I understand what happened at 2.5. I was here. I understand that we set our numbers low so we could, as Ted said, that we could offer the lowest tax rates and get people into the town and be happy. And that's nice. And no tax, no fees for garbage pickup. That was a wonderful thing for a long time. But things move on. I will disagree with the fact that construction of apartment buildings and condos makes money, because with that, which was not said, the services you need to provide for those. Each one of those apartments or leases, they have wastewater that goes into the MWRA, which costs us money. There's going to have to be freshwater considerations somewhere down the line, whether we go to MWRA or whether somehow we can get the ponds to suddenly spring a new well. I have no idea, but it's going to cost. Police, fire, roads, the widening again of Route 18 possibly. You know, who knows what's going to come on, because we were promised it wouldn't get wider. We were promised it would not be able to build anymore, and yet they continue to build. The complex across from Pavetti's on 58, the new prospect of buildings in Jackson Square. Where are those kids going to go? You have 200 plus units going there. All right. What if 100 kids show up? And this is what, with all due respect to Ted and whatever, and to the group up there at Town Hall, I'm in the school every day. I've been in school every day for 32 years. These people back here have been in school every day. We see not the quantity, but the quality of what's going on. And I say to you this, that unless you start thinking ahead here and not go back on, well, our goal is to level fund. Our goal should not be the level fund. Our goal should be to overfund, because we are on the low end of 351 communities, and Weymouth is dear to me. I was born here, I was raised here, went to school here, taught here my whole career. My mother taught here the whole career. My brother taught here for part of his career. My kids have gone to school here. We were once rated nationally in this town, if you remember way back when. We're not there. We are not there. We've let it go by because people have accepted the level funded budget scenario. That, if we can only just get what we have. What, mediocrity? That's what we're looking for? I don't think so. That's not what I'm looking for. And I'm not getting angry at this or frustrated or upset. I'm trying to get the point across that the school committee has to advocate for us, and they understand that. That's their job. Their job is not to worry about police, fire, roads, or anything else. Their job is to worry about the 6,000 plus kids here. $12 million in per pupil expenditure is what we are losing right now. Why is that? Because people can't get together and think about a way out of this mess. We have the brain power, the collective brain power to do this, and yet we refuse to, because we sit around and just let the status quo be. I am not teaching my students to be mediocre, Why should you? Why should you keep me hired on if that's what I'm doing? 6,000 kids of quality education, not what the dollar figure is going to. Have you been to the schools? Have you seen what's happening? Our primary schools are busting out the seams. You can't just sit there and go, I'm going to plant 5,000 more units at Southfield and expect to build a K-8 school and say that solves it. We'll just stick the rest in Hamilton and Nash. Guess what? Hamilton and Nash doesn't have any room. What about the 100 people at Jackson Square, the 100 possible kids that could go in out of 200 some odd units? You're going to put them at Pingree? No, you're not, because they can't fit. And now you're going to reduce the staff because there's no one to teach them either. So where are you going to put them? Start thinking a little bit about the future here. And the future is now, not tomorrow, not next year, not 2027, 28. And we're not spoiled. We just want what's right for the kids. And we want to talk about what's right for the kids. Let's talk about the safety issue. Where's the money for the safety? I get calls every day about teachers getting hurt from students. Every day. Concussed, scratched, bitten, pushed, hit. Where's the help here? It's not You know, Mel and Brian and Lindsay and the people up here, they've been doing their darndest to help us out on a limited budget. And you want to say $91 million is not limited. It's the biggest budget in town. I agree. We have the most vital group of kids under it. It should be the most. It should be 101 million. Not because I want more money. Take my money away. I don't care. I'm too long in the tooth. I don't need it. What you need to do is support those 6,000 kids, those EL students coming into town, all those SPED kids who go day in and day out without getting their services because we can't afford it. How does that hit you? Because we can't afford it. So you want to talk about towns, talk about the 12% or wherever we lay in of those 351 communities because we refuse to think ahead. Because that's what this town has got to do. And it starts with the mayor, and I'm glad you're there because I'm glad you're hearing this. And I know you'll think about it and talk about it and have those tough conversations. I'm glad you will do that. And I will help you every ounce of the way. We're not here to argue a contract. We're not here to show you that we want more money. We're not the greedy teachers some of the public thinks we are. We're here to tell you that not all is golden here in the school department. And it's not because of Mel or Brian or Lindsay. It's not because of Tracy or Danielle or anybody else here. It's because the town has refused to take their responsibility seriously and fund the schools the way they should be funded. Why can't we be Wellesley? Why can't we be Weston? I did my dissertation at Weston. I was amazed. Amazed. And I understand they're a wealthy town. I understand they're affluent. I get it. But there is no reason Weymouth has to be at the bottom end of 351. None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Mike, I just want to say that we haven't supported staff and students this year. We have added $500,000 in positions this year after listening to many union meetings. And so I just want to be fair on that respect. I just don't want it to get to the public that everyone in the firm is doing their job. We have been doing our job. We talk with you guys, we talked with the mayor's office, talked with school committee. We've added $500,000 in positions this year. So I just want to clarify that one piece. I'm not going to.
Just be clear, I didn't say you weren't doing your job. I
understand.
I thank you to no end for what you did this year with no money. I really do. It's helped a lot, but it's not enough.
Go ahead, Kim.
And if I could clarify,
Go ahead, Tim.
please, because to suggest that we're not, or I'm not taking this seriously is just absurd. And you just have to look at the numbers and we made a concerted decision to support zoning and bylaws that grew the town, and to say that growth didn't create new revenue is just not accurate. And in addition to just doing that, we do track the impact of all of our growth, including student enrollment. And even before our new growth, we did that up at the what's already been developed at Union Point. We kept track because there's several thousand units up there and a lot of people, and the student impact was minimal. And you just have to look at the fact when we started our plan for the new zoning and new growth, the enrollment was over 6,000, was pushing 6,200 students. Last year it was 5,600 with all that new growth. So that there wasn't an impact with students with the new growth. Enrollment actually declined over that.
But the needs of students have
right. And that's why also on the other part of that, in 10 years, we've given the schools $28 million in new revenue just for their operating budget. That's over 4.5% per year. To suggest that's not taking it seriously, again, I don't think is accurate. That's 4.5% a year on average for 10 years. $28 million new revenue, taking it from $65 million to $90 million in a budget. That change was 230 new full-time equivalent positions in the school department. That was up there earlier. So we have invested in the schools. And it's always traditionally at least 9 or 8 of 9 of those years, the schools have gotten more percentage wise than any other department in town, certainly over many of those years. And that's just operating. You know, there's as much, if not more, on the capital side of stuff that we've invested in the schools. But we do pay close attention to the impact of the growth. But it is what has fueled the increases in the budget the last 10 years. And it's the only thing that's going to fuel future increases, because we showed you that it's not going to be local aid. And there's only so much we can do in advocating, you know, for that. And we have for every year, and it's stayed flat. And so we have to create the revenue ourselves, and we have. And unfortunately, we've had to turn half of our new revenue back to the state and healthcare costs and assessments. But we have taken it seriously, and I think the record is pretty clear. And we took the town from on the brink of getting fined for net school spending to being well over net school spending. So the progress is clear. That doesn't mean we can't want more. Those aren't mutually exclusive. But because we want more, we can't ignore the past and the success we've had over the last 10 years.
Thanks, John. Go ahead, Kim.
Kimberly Ferrero, 105 Charles Durr Street. Like, just a note on like the last 10 years, like I think I bought my second home in Weymouth about 10 years ago. I know I couldn't personally, and I think many of us like self-confessed townies probably couldn't buy our own homes today. So when we see that growth and we stay and, you know, we pay higher, we want to invest it in our future, in our children's future. And, you know, I see young families coming from more affluent towns, like moving in across the street at a house I couldn't afford it, you know, currently. And, you know, I want them, I know they're coming in here with these young families, and I want them to have the like amazing educational experiences and the people that my kids are getting. And like, we have to do everything we can to sustain that. And we have to take advantage of our growth. And, you know, we're getting, you know, quite frankly, a little bougier in some areas. And they want to see the schools, you know.
Speak up a little bit, Kim. Sorry.
All right, speak up a little bit. I'll get back to my scripted portion of the at first, I have to thank everyone who came to this table and advocated for the very specific programming that some of our students require. The smallest app that might be a blip in the budget can have a significant impact on how a child's going to access learning. And we don't want our teachers to have to run through hoops. But all that being said, I have every confidence in the world on the team that is handling that. And I just look forward to those conversations and hearing more. Some of the things that we're talking about within the budget, it kind of goes back to what we see on the other side of those doors, and that's early intervention. Earlier intervention is not the infancy through toddler concept. It is a concept that is going to impact students at every phase. And we need to be mindful of that as we decide how we're going to spend the dollars we do have. You know, if we bring in assistant principals, that original design to bring in assistant principals into every building, as told to me, the chair of CFAC, was that it was going to be directly impacting student services and special education. I want to fill those roles, and I want to fill them with people who have the experience, ideally the experience within our own school system to put in those roles. We have so many talented, empathetic professionals. I would love to see some of them, even in this room, get their licensure and take on those leadership roles, because they understand our culture, they understand the needs, and we're not going through a learning curve. We're hitting the ground running, and they have the relationships with families, with the administration, and with the committees already. And lastly, back to early intervention, when we talk about BCBAs, float RBTs, additional mental health support, this is all, no matter what the age, what the grade, this is all early intervention. We are mitigating trauma, mitigating loss in learning and behaviors as early as possible. The basic concept of ABA is antecedents. We look at the antecedents. We need to tackle these problems when we identify what's triggering them. We need to bring in the solutions fast. And that is a long-term perspective, because if we can solve these problems, if we can get the supports in place for our staff and our students early, it's going to be exponentially less expensive than paying for the supports for the out of districts and the costs long term. And I'm not just talking to a postgrad. Long term, we're going to have people who are working. We're going to have people who are going into the world non-traumatized and leading meaningful impacting lives and giving back to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Elizabeth Singer.
Yes, please. Hi, Elizabeth Foster Nolan, 54 House Rock Road. I'm going to change the narrative a little bit because one of the things I want to do is thank every person in this room who ran for school committee, or this time and last time. I believe you all got on school committee because you saw where the future was coming and that you are in fact looking forward to try to figure out how to solve this. And in that, I include Brian and I include Mel, as well as the department heads. And I do believe the town is looking forward. The town is trying to figure this out. They have, I don't know the number, they have so many departments that they have to juggle. Yes, schools are important. People come to the town and look at what is the school doing? Where is the school ranked? Yeah, people look at raw numbers. I mean, we're never going to get away from that. But I think if there can be continued cooperation, continued dialogue, which clearly is happening, that's going to only help the schools because they're going to understand at the town side, wait a minute, we're in a crisis around this. This is developed. We see that next year, that's going to be a big issue. The more information they have from you guys who are on the ground, the better it is and the easier it is for them to look at it. In terms of Union Point, I do see them looking forward at that. They're looking at numbers. We're not going to build a school tomorrow. Way back when, I'm going to go back in the time machine. There was a school promised out at Union Point. We had a very long, somewhat heated discussion with Townwide Parent Council. We were told we were their toughest audience when they were talking about it. But I don't think they've ever dropped that possibility that may be something that's necessary. Again, it's not going to happen. I mean, MWRA has certainly taken over in terms of getting that squared away for infrastructure, working with the governor and the lieutenant governor. That is only helping us because when they see what we're doing with it, I just can't imagine they're not going to promote that. And again, as Ted said, we're talking housing, huge issue across the Commonwealth. And again, we don't know what the numbers are going to be, but I think people are looking at them closely from the school department as well as from the town side. And I'm going to switch to question, Ted. Health insurance, huge expense for everybody. I heard you say that over the last several years, the HR department has looked to move people off of what I'll call the prime plan to another plan that meets their needs, but is less expensive for the town because of the split. My question becomes, has there been discussions or an analysis done about giving employees who have another way to get health insurance a stipend? So that in fact, they're not taking Weymouth self-insurance, they're taking their spouses or their partners if the insurance allows partners who are not married, which there was a big change back when marriage was legalized for. So I don't know whether that's been done, but on the corporate side, that really helped in terms of looking at high deductible plans, looking at just the stipend was huge because people said, you know, why haven't I thought about this? Gee, my husband just got a better plan or my wife just got a better plan, but the town's going to give me $2,000. I don't know, again, if that analysis has been done or whether it can be done.
On this level, it hasn't, but I did have my CFO research other communities that do it. And he has sent me the communities that do it and how they do it. But when I say, you know, this 1% is the beginning, and then we know what's at stake, and then we start looking for as many solutions as we can. That's potentially one of them.
Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone who is doing the best for the kids in Weymouth. It's not an easy battle. It is a long battle. No, it's not a battle. It's a long collaboration. Let me change my language. It's a collaboration between the town and those people who work for the school department. And I just see much better collaboration, and I anticipate continued collaboration along that. And the people are putting forth what they believe they need for the students in the town of Weymouth. Thank you.
Thank
you. Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like some of the comments that were made earlier, it's really impressive that the Chief of Staff and the Mayor are here, spending all this time in front of the community, talking about challenges of the fiscal year 27 budget, and earlier than last year. The distance continued practice going forward. Yeah, this document that was attached, the revenue projection document that was attached to the Mayor's November memo, right? You may have said this and I missed it, and if that's the case, I apologize. The 950,000 that's new growth revenue isn't included in the calculation revenue forecast because it isn't solidified. Is that why? Because when you do the math, the 950 isn't included in the revenue.
Which memo that is?
This is the attachment. That's that attachment.
I've written blood. That's not that one. That says 950 right on it. So
right, 950. That's what I'm looking at.
It's not additional.
It was attached to the Mayor's memo back in November. So when I guess the question, so the new growth estimate of $950,000, it's not in the arithmetic of the revenue.
Right, it's right there. 950.
No, I see it, but what you have is total new revenue of $5.6 million.
I'll tell you, this is the estimate right now.
That's the
okay. Right.
I don't know what.
I think it's the same document.
No. It evolved. It definitely has changed in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's in there.
It's right there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. This breaks it out. It's buried up. So to your point, it's not a number. You can see it.
Yeah, the 147.7 includes 950.
Correct. The 950 is in this, Gus. He just
okay. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. I made this point at last year's town meeting, and I'm going to try to make it again. I think part of the issues that are lost in some of the contextual conversation around increasing development and the increasing growth numbers. There's a flip side to that. The flip side is that the state looks at what's called, as you all know, equalized valuation. Weymouth's equalized valuation, that is the amount of property that's taxable, is $13.4 billion. Every time we increase tax base, DESE takes a look at it in the Chapter 70 formula and says, Weymouth, you now have a larger wallet, so therefore you are now going to have to contribute a larger number in what's called your local contribution. In fiscal year 26, our aid number was only increased by $437,400. To Ted's point in our past conversations about the fact that we're in a minimum aid community, the 221 that are out of those 351 that get minimum aid, Weymouth is one of them. So in fiscal year 26, we only got a 1.46% increase in Chapter 70 aid, totaling $30.3 million. The bad side is the other side, the local contribution, which increases year to year based upon what our equalized valuation is, what DESE says is our ability to pay. In fiscal year 26, that increased by 5.35%, an additional $3.7 million that the town had to invest into schools as part of the local contribution, which totaled $73.5 million last year. My point is that aside from water and traffic and enrollment student numbers creating additional demands on the community, there's an additional demand, which is the increased local contribution that is part of the Chapter 70 calculation when you increase the value of your taxable base. I tried to make that point at last year's town meeting, and I'm just going to raise it again here, that you have to pay attention to those numbers because it does cost us in terms of what the state says we should be increasingly funding our schools for.
And I think I made the counterpoint that equalized value is moot because we're a minimum aid community. That calculation is for all the communities that aren't minimum aid. So are you saying that, do you know then what the equalized value would need to be for us to get regular local aid and not?
No,
Okay, so that's why it's moot, because we're a minimum local aid community. We get per pupil aid, period. It has nothing to do with equalized value.
I'm talking about the local contribution, Ted.
No, but that's in the Chapter 70 formula, of which we don't get.
Aid is separate from our local contribution. We get state aid under Chapter 70, and we then have to contribute the local contribution number. That's what I'm talking about.
That's part of the formula.
It is, it is, and I'm saying that number keeps increasing.
Formula is moot to us and most of the communities because we get a flat per pupil aid. That is our Chapter 70, flat per pupil aid.
I recognize that, Ted, but the formula isn't moot in terms of the local contribution number. That number also keeps going up.
But
in fiscal year 26 and one,
how does a local contribution affect the per pupil aid that we
it doesn't. They're two separate things. I'm talking about the local contribution number. That number increases relative to the taxable value of our collective property. So
to what formula?
In the Chapter 70 collective formula.
Right. We don't get that. We get our Chapter 70 is per pupil.
I understand that.
You're talking about a formula that doesn't apply to us.
I'm talking about the local contribution number, and I don't want to get into a long debate here, Madam Chair, but the local contribution number, Ted, in fiscal year 25 was $69.8 million. That's what the state said Weymouth had to invest in schools in fiscal year 25. In fiscal year 26, that increased by 5.35% to $73.5 million. I'm not talking about the aid number. I'm talking about the local contribution requirement number.
But that's the formula to.
There's two pieces to that formula, Ted. There's the aid calculation, and then there's the local contribution number calculation.
Because we're minimum aid.
I know that.
So that none of that affects minimum aid.
I understand that. What I'm saying is it affects the requirement for our increased local contribution number, which is based upon our total taxable value.
Well, what's the impact of that?
That in fiscal year 26, we had to pay an addition. The town had to invest an additional $3.7 million.
We have to pay.
It's right here, Ted. This is from the DESI website.
I think that's what we pay. No,
I'm saying in terms of in fiscal year 26, we were required from a net school spending basis to invest $103,932,223 in our schools. $73.5 million of that was our local contribution, money that the town of Weymouth had to come up with to fund schools. The other part of the $103 million was $30.3 million in Chapter 78. My point, and I guess I'm not making it well for the second year in a row, is that as we increase the value of our property wealth, our local contribution requirement goes up. It's separate from the local aid number. I'm talking about what the state says we have to invest in our schools.
Separate. It's part of the Chapter 70 formula.
It's separate. It's right here.
Because we meet the requirements for anything other than after they do that formula, then they decide, hey, you don't meet the requirements, so you get per pupil aid.
And you have to pay an additional $3.7 million from local funds as part of your local contribution. We can talk about it later.
Numbers, it's calculation.
You take up Ted on his open office policy instead of a meeting with him.
That's fine. I'll move on. I'll move on.
Sorry.
When we talk about, I'm glad to hear that the conversations about the impacts of the different departments haven't necessarily happened yet. I mean, obviously, we're early in the process. I was glad to hear that from the chief of staff.
Sorry.
That the conversations with the different departments about the impacts.
No, they've all given me a 1% budget.
Right. But hopefully that's not going to be the end, because my argument is going to be that because the school department has the largest number of employees, has the largest number of buildings, has the largest number of infrastructure, and I'm going to argue has the largest social impact in our community, simply going across the board and saying we're going to do a 1% easy breezy across the board is not a true equitable way to do it. You need to take a look at what are in fact the implications to Weymouth Public Schools. For example, there was a question asked, I don't know who, maybe it was Tracy that asked it, in terms of, or Ashley, in terms of what other departments' staff reduction impacts may be. I don't know if those conversations have happened yet, or if they haven't happened yet.
They've given me 1% budget.
They're in there. On the school side, just for impact purposes, the school department has routinely reported over the last couple of years, when there's been cuts and resulting staff reductions, that They are, quote, to the bone. The budget is to the penny, that there is no additional savings or cutting available from programs or infrastructure or anything else. Translation is going to be from staff. If these numbers hold, I want everybody to understand, and I know that Melanie's talking about the fact that she doesn't want to create a panic, but it's time to have the conversations now. I raised the issue over the last 2 budget subcommittee meetings. If you use a salary of $100,000 to make up a $4 million shortfall, strictly from staff cuts, is 40 staff. And of course, that's not reality, because you have staff at 37, at 42,000, at 49,000, at 53,000, at 67,000, at 86,000. There's not going to be 40 staff reductions at $100,000. That's not possible. So the collective sum total of whatever the staff reductions are going to be a significant number. And I'm hopeful that we're going to hear that number at the February 4th meeting, although I wish we were hearing it now, because that is the impactful number. When Melanie makes a reference to the fact that this 1% budget is going to take us back, Mike, to when you and I first met and we advocated for the budgets. And I have to say that you were very supportive then, and I know you're going to be thoughtful about the exercise now as mayor. But the reality is that we're going to be looking at staff cuts in Weymouth Public Schools that are going to be the same or worse than the staff cuts that took place in 08, 09, 10, 11. We're talking about potential numbers of 50, 60, and maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, pushing 70. I don't know what the total FTE combinations will be once the Weymouth Public School Administration goes through their retirement calculations and breakage calculations and all of that, but it is going to be a significant number of staff. And teaching does not happen without staff. Student supports does not happen without staff. Special education does not happen without staff. And staff cuts that are going to look like they're on the table for Weymouth Public Schools as a result of an equitable 1% budget across the board should be unacceptable to everybody at this table, should be unacceptable to everybody sitting behind me, should be unacceptable to everybody watching this meeting, should be unacceptable to anybody in the community of Weymouth, because you cannot have a successful community without a successful school system. And if anybody sitting here or behind me or out in the community thinks that Weymouth Public Schools excels, you are on the wrong planet. If you take a look at all of the metrics relating to academic outcomes in Weymouth Public Schools, we lag behind our peers and the state. The one only potential exception to that is some AP scores at the high school are actually above the state averages. But if you look at MCAS results across all the grades, if you look at SAT scores, the majority of AP scores, we are well behind the state. We're below the state averages. I had a conversation with a counselor last week, talked about the fact that, well, I've been told that Massachusetts is top of the nation and that we're right at the state average. Therefore, he said, we're good. No, if you take a look at academic outcomes related to MCAS, that's a 60% failure in ELA in science. By that, I mean only about 40% of students in Massachusetts are meeting or exceeding expectations in MCAS, and Weymouth Public Schools from 3rd to 10th grade are below the state averages. And I'm just going to suggest to all of you and to Mayor Melise and to counselors that might be watching or to counselors that might be engaging with us in additional conversations, if you stick to a 1% budget, a 4.25 reduction from level service, a $4 million cut to Weymouth Public Schools budget in fiscal year 27, I want you to acknowledge when that takes place that you are doing so fully cognizant of the fact you're doing a disservice to the students and the families of the Weymouth Public Schools and the community at large as we move forward on this whole thing. Keep that in mind as we move forward, because that is going to be the effect. A complete reversal of everything that's been done from a staffing perspective or from a programmatic improvement perspective since 2008, 2009, 2010. Please bear that in mind as you continue with these conversations. As I said last week, that is the role of Weymouth School Committee and Weymouth Public Schools Administration, to talk about reality. The reality is ugly, but the reality has to be discussed if the town side is going to continue with this 1%, what they call equitable reductions across the board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
on that. I do believe Superintendent Curtin did address that. She said this is this, and I don't think anybody at this table takes it lightly that we're talking about a 1% budget. I know as a school committee member, as a parent, I do not take that lightly, and I'm not happy about it.
I know you don't.
That, everybody sitting at this table is taking that into account.
I know you don't. I guess if I may, Madam Chair, the difference is the conversations are definitely happening here at Budget Sub. How many people are watching? Weymouth School Committee meetings used to be, I think they may still be, the #1 most watched show on WTC. So my suggestion is that these conversations should have been happening and need to happen starting tomorrow night at the Weymouth School Committee meeting. Tomorrow night, you need to talk about the potential negative impacts of this 1% budget. This conversation has not happened anywhere near to this level of detail at any Weymouth School Committee meeting to date. And I'm suggesting that it needs to start as of tomorrow night. An extraneous item on the agenda. Forget OML.
I was gonna say something.
But I also feel like I give a budget update every single meeting.
Yeah, it's not the same, Madam Chair. It's not the same. This slide, the three budget slide, where is it? This one? This one, I think, got a 2 minutes worth of attention at a school committee meeting, maybe 3 school committee meetings ago. That's it.
Because it was December.
And
we're
we
so
also,
early in the
and
process.
we don't want to focus on the 1%. So we don't want to,
You know.
on what we want to do, advocate for.
Yep. Look at the history. Look at the history of this budget process in the past. Look at the history of the budget process in the past.
I think we're doing a much different, way better job, way more job.
I've said it. And I give you all kinds of credit for that. This is a completely different universe in terms of transparency at these meetings. What I'm suggesting.
It doesn't end at these meetings. It doesn't end at school committee meetings. It ends when we talk to parents, when we go to parent council meetings, when we do more. We meet with the mayor, we meet with the town council. I've met with Brian probably more times than I've met my husband. It doesn't end here.
I know that.
I love you. But
I know that. And I know that all that hard work is absolutely going on, and it happens all the time. But no, I do say that. The problem is the shortage is, or the piece that isn't happening is that level of conversation is happening here with the public, but not as but not in front of the public at school committee. That's what I'm saying. Not in front of the public at school committee, the most watched television show on local cable TV. That's how you inform the community, because we're not going to see a first page article in the Patriot Ledger. The Weymouth News doesn't exist anymore. So if this was Quincy, it would be all over the papers. But because it isn't Quincy, we're not going to be able to use the media, the fourth estate, as the mechanism for communicating to the community. I'm just suggesting, and again, it's not to diminish all the work that I know is happening, but it's not happening in the one forum that could serve as the #1 communication vehicle to inform the community at large. That's all I'm suggesting.
I respectfully disagree with your opinion,
Okay.
your perception of that. Did you want to say
I
something?
just want to clarify, and it was said before, just for the process, I just want to make it clear that we're not here saying that the school's only getting 1%.
Yep.
We're saying based on the projected revenues from the last couple months, that's just where we are right now, and that's only made available. And so what we did was we asked each department for 1% budget. So that way, across the board, we identified what's at stake and what's left over, or what would potentially be cut. And from that, now we know what's at stake. And now we try to make those projections better. And some of it is in our control, some of it's not.
Sure.
And so with new growth, it's not. We'll find out. Hopefully it's more. We're looking at, ways to create new revenue. But we have to start with what's at stake and what we need. Now, do I think we're going to bridge that gap completely? No. But we're going to try to get as close as we can. And this is, again, we're 3 months away from submitting a budget.
So a 2% budget will be a $2 million shortfall. It'll be three years in a row of staff cuts and budget reductions. I forgot one item, Madam Chair. Thanks for your indulgence. This is a question for the mayor and for Ted. A couple of weeks ago, Commonwealth Beacon magazine published an article that talked about the fact that Weymouth, under the current definitions of gateway cities, should have been classified as a gateway city, which means additional aid from the state for several years. Apparently that came to a surprise to everybody. I hear that you're all over this because it could potentially, I mean, I know for fiscal year 27, maybe it won't mean additional aid, but if I could ask the mayor or the chief of staff to kind of address the issue about whether in fact we are now engaged in conversations with Beacon Hill leadership about the fact that we should have been a gateway city, should have been receiving additional aid, as have the Lawrences and the Hollyoaks and the 24 other current gateway cities.
Yeah, I was notified about 2-3 weeks ago on it. Patrick O'Connor. I'm working with Patrick and Senator Cronin on it. We're discussing the options on it.
Do you think it's accurate to say that it's probably not going to be, nothing's going to happen at the
State House tomorrow, so I'm sure I'll have more information.
That's great, Mayor. Thanks very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes. So again, I just want to reiterate, we're really early in the process and we have a lot of unknowns. Just be mindful, like we're in the middle of huge negotiations with several unions. That is a big unknown. And so there's not just, that little, the forecast that we're talking about, but we have a lot of unknowns, like even like Ted said about the snow removal. We could have potentially 5 more huge snow.
Be 2015.
Right. So there's just so many unknowns and we're early in the process to find out and uncover all those known things. So.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Shea. I have a 4th grader at West Augusta and I moved here in 2009. I think someone in your family sold me my house. And I'm just coming here because I heard you've been to the schools, you've seen what's going on, but my daughter's in 4th grade and what she got in 1st grade is vastly different right now at West Augusta, which is one of the best elementary schools in the town. But she doesn't have STEAM, she doesn't have math specialties. There's a lot, like I have new kindergarten moms coming up to me telling me what they love about the school, and they don't even know what they're missing because they're first time parents in, and I feel bad because like they don't even know to come here to advocate more for that. And then I listened last year what the cuts really were, and they really hit Chapman hard. So I'm glad I was there because I'm gonna fight for that by next year when she's in 5th grade, going into 6th grade, that has to come back to Chapman, because all I know is in 2009, my taxes went up at certain points of the year because I was paying for this awesome school at Chapman, that now I'm feeling like right now my potential 6th grader is going to have less teachers. I know that because a team got cut last year. And, there's a lot of activities that are getting cut, a lot of exploratories getting cut. And that's kind of what I bought into when I came to Weymouth from Quincy. Like, we're going to have this awesome school. I'm going to pay more in taxes, and that's fine because it's going to be this awesome school. And they have an already awesome high school that beats Quincy in sports. So I'm happy. But I guess as a parent, this is really directed to you guys because I think everybody here at the table has been doing an amazing job since last year, and really leaving this open for parents and teachers to come up here and really voice and advocate for what they need. So as what I get stumped at as a parent, and I want to advocate for the town to use more of what I'm paying into for what I really want. Now, I know that sounds very small-minded, but I don't know how to advocate for that. So I guess now with you here, just knowing what can a parent do? How do we what meetings do we show up to? Because I'm coming to these meetings all the time. It's not dire yet. I came when it was dire last year. And what I was advocating for then seemed so mean at the end. I really wanted STEAM, but I knew there was how many teachers got cut from Chapman last year. So it was totally inappropriate for me to be but my daughter in elementary school and all these other kids. So we're here before the dire time comes. So what can parents do? Where can we go and fight more or advocate more or whatever we need to do? Because it's just super hard to look at last year's budget, know how hard Chapman got hit and other places got hit. And then I can't really find where, and this is me being naive looking at budgets, where the other departments in the town got hit. I don't, I'm sure there was cuts somewhere, but I do know my trash pickup went way up, but my trash pickup is still not covering the cost of trash pickup in Weymouth. So it's still at a deficit. So that's why I think it's great we're having these conversations about numbers that I don't understand, but I want to push, I guess, you guys, town council, for a better budget plan. Like, yes, Union Point, I've been hearing Union Point. My mother-in-law lives at Union Point. It's great. But I am scared. I don't want all those kids to like rush into Talbot and Hamilton and then everything gets pushed back. Like my daughter, when I went to West Augusta, I almost had to go to Academy. Like it just gets a little crazy pants when we're relying on all these new, like, I just felt like I wrote down what the potential revenue was that was coming in. It just seemed like this is potential revenue that seemed a little too, like, maybe not realistic for next year. Whereas, is there other things getting cut other places or maneuvered around that seems like that could be like concrete revenue for next year? And then, so again, just going back to that and just understanding that as a parent, knowing that we're getting less at the school. And it's not because of the people sitting here at this table at all. And it's not for the people that are in the school at all. They're kind of making everything they can out of what we have. But as a person that really wants to pay into whatever we need to do to get like the best education or the actually like the best reputation of an education even, that's what I want to know how to do. And my last thing is, if you don't know that we started this last year because there was crazy parents that kept coming up being like, we want STEAM, and they at least put it down on a piece of paper somewhere. So this is our aspirational list. And I really would love, and this is me like in my rainbow world, an aspirational thing where teachers don't have to show up and fight for things that are like their contracts, their job positions, and parents don't have to show up for things like STEAM and math and specialties like that, where we want that for our kids. So that's my little aspirational thing there. But thank you.
No, I just think to advocate, you come to these meetings.
Yeah.
School committee, obviously, they're open to listen. They have a public hearing at the meetings and things like that. But it bothers me when I hear people say the Weymouth schools aren't good,
Yeah, me too.
because the Weymouth schools are terrific.
I
Really are.
I love
Real
everything.
estate, and people want to come to Weymouth. They want to live in Weymouth. We have great schools. The Chapman School, I visited over there. I was down at the West Augusta School for the Public Safety Appreciation Day that they had down there. Great teachers, good schools, and they're willing to listen. I had a call the other day from a woman that was having an issue up at Nash School, and she said the superintendent had called her right back and talked to her. So they're responsive.
Yeah,
And I think here, when I came here tonight, I thought this was going to be a work meeting where we were going to talk and go back and forth of what it's just a start. It's January, and see where we are. This is on the table of 1%, then you go from there, but it's a starting point. We're starting early, and I think that, at the end of the day, we're all here for the same thing. You're here for the kids. We want it good for the kids here in the schools. Chapman School, runs a great ship over there. Really good. The school committee's on board, the meetings, the public hearings, so you can go in and talk and,
I just want my daughter to go there in 2 years, and every room that was built for exploratories, that was built for all the extras that get cut because we don't have that money, and that's where they're finding all these cuts, that she has that. Because I'm gonna go in there and not even know that that was one time what it was built for. And that's what I show up to all these meetings for, to make sure that I remember all that, to keep fighting for it. But as a parent, I'm gonna keep showing up here, but it feels like I show up here and I should be going somewhere else, like maybe to your office every day or downtown. Where do we shift the money? Because someone came up at school committee that last school committee meeting and said, how do I change that my taxes, all my money goes to the education department and less to this or less to this? I don't even know if that's even possible. But if taxpayers show up and fight for something like that, because it seems like that's what parents want. All the parents at West Augusta, that's what they want, because it's an awesome school and we want everything back. We want our STEAM teacher back that's here. Like, we want her back.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mary Beth, if I may, Townwide Parent Council, they always have super information about advocating at the state level. Ashley's been up there many times advocating for more funding. CPAC.
No, and we've been on that. I just feel like with the budget,
it seems like it can be done in this room or the room across the street. So I just would love, more of that. Thank you. Thanks.
You want to read them?
I wasn't gonna read, so the only comment we have in line, Ben has several comments. Appreciate the comments, Ben. This is recorded, so folks can go back and read. And I know Ben has had a lot of our public meetings, so I'm sure he'll bring these comments up.
Okay,
again.
thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Katie?
Just a couple of Katie Montero, WEA. Hi. Thank you for spending your fun night with us. Just a couple of questions. You were discussing all this new money that's going to be brought in potentially from the build over at Union Point. Potentially the 35 million was given to Weymouth, right? I think you said. So then an estimated about 12 million a year in new revenue. Is that?
Those are some of the, they go up to 20 million.
Okay.
I use a low number.
How much of that is earmarked specifically for the school department?
Well, we have to earn it first.
Right.
We have to realize it first.
Right. Well, so the reason I'm asking is because clearly we're already overtaxed in our buildings. And so there would have to be a new school prior to any of these kiddos moving in. So that's just, something to think about.
Right. And I would look at it as a way of proportional to, the breakdown now is how you would start maybe estimating it as far as like what proportion of the school budget is the full budget now. You know what I mean? And
I do.
Revenue and start there, but that's going to be a lot more intense and a lot more detail along the way. But it's going to start, a lot.
I'm just hoping I get
earlier than we actually need it.
Great.
Like we're not looking to build and then react to building or all the people. We're going to look to having things in place before things.
That is my point.
Yes.
Thank you. I really hope that we remember that and that you're saying that, because let's remember that. Let's all remember that we're talking about that right now, because that's actually
this is planning, not reacting.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that statement. Also, with the potential cuts and whatnot, we already are taxing our, and I don't mean taxing money wise, I mean putting a lot of pressure on our local police and ambulance and fire departments, given the responses that they need to respond to our buildings, given the amount of, crisis that we're happening. So if you are cutting, not you, if the budget goes through at a 1%, which is early, and you're just saying that that's why we're here to advocate, it's early, we're here to show the need. So potentially doubling, tripling class sizes, we'll be utilizing those services even more, just putting that out there. The students' needs have become so much more than we've seen over the years. We don't really have the answer to that, but we do need to make sure that they're getting the needs met. And right now they're not all the time. Everyone here at this table, everyone behind me, everyone in every building is doing the best they can with what they have. And I don't know how much longer they can do that. One other question. And then I guess through you, Madam Chair, I wanted to go back to the comment about making sure that we're really funding our mental health services that we're providing in our schools. I'm really concerned that this has been not a huge focus in past years, and I think we're seeing the result of that right now with how our students are telling us that they need that help, and we don't have enough adjustment counselors in the buildings to help. That's not anybody's fault here at this table. That's just what the budget is. But this is what the kids need. The kids need their adjustment counselors. We don't have enough. You're proposing on one of the budgets an additional, ABAs and RBTs. Awesome. But if you do that, you have to have more BCBAs because they have to oversee those ABAs and RBTs. So those things are not mutually exclusive. You have to have those things together. Just as a reminder, these reclassifications you have on here of ESPs to ABAs, I just think that we need to be mindful that those are very two different jobs. And I'm hoping that with that reclassification, the proper follow through with training is happening, the proper follow through with making sure that person's trained and certified to do that job. It's not just a title change.
To that point, so like, for example, we just added this Chapman Float ABA. It was a person in the building that is completely trained, has been doing ABA work for years, became a float, and then we're backfilling with an ESP position. So just to your point, we do absolutely consider that.
Yes, thank you.
But to her point, the float ABA/RBT for Siege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are two totally different positions. ABA is a 40-hour training. RBT is a registered behavior technician.
These are like a lane change in our contract.
But are they changed? Are they trained as an ABA? Or are they trained as an RBT? And who's overseeing that RBT if it's an RBT?
Right.
That one in particular is an RBT.
Yeah.
And there's a full-time.
Yeah. It's a unity contract. It's really like a lane change. So the person gets certified as RBT.
So why put the ABA, I guess?
Because if they're on one salary grid, and then if as an ABA they become RBT trained, then it's moved to a different salary grid.
So it's
like a lane change.
They started as an ABA and then they migrated into an RBT facility.
It's an ABA position,
Yep.
and then if they are an RBT, they get paid as the RBT, and there's additional things in the BCBA contract to make sure they get the proper.
Good question. It's not clear there.
Sorry, Katie.
No. I think that's really good to point out. But I think also we're forgetting when you're asking for one BCBA, that's great. But the BCBA's caseloads right now are unethical in the fact that if you were going into, and I know we're a public school, but if you're going to a private sector, you're quadrupling their ethical standards in their caseloads. And they're not even, I'm not speaking for them, but I'm trying to advocate for them, saying that they're not able to give what they need and do their job because there's not enough of them. And in turn, then that affects the RBTs, that affects the ABAs, and then that trickles down to the students. So just when I understand that, budgets are tough. I understand that. But in order for us to sort of get ahead of the disaster that could be coming down the line with these really tiny budgets, you're also looking at these really tiny humans that are desperately telling us that they need help. And they're not numbers, they're people. These are families, these are children, they're struggling, and we need to figure out a way to help them. So yes, I know it's all about numbers when it comes to budget, but these are human beings that we are charged to take care of and make sure that we give them the quality that they deserve every day in our schools. And it's upsetting to go in and not be able to do that every day. So yes, I know your job and a lot of this is all about the numbers, but please remember that these numbers represent these tiny little people that need our help right now, and they need our support, and they need better. We're not giving it to them right now because we are all doing the best we can with the little that we're given. I don't know how that changes, but we are all here to advocate and show that we're here to help you advocate. So if that means going to Senator O'Connor, or if that means going to the State House, or that's why we're here. We're here to say, we're here to do the work with you. So let us do the work together to make this better for our kiddos. And I'm speaking as a parent too. I'm not just a person who's here for the union. My kid goes to Weymouth Public Schools and has unfortunately not received the best support possible all the way through up until he met this one particular person up at the high school who probably saved his life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Can you put that back up? If we invest in an RBT or BCBA, what's the salary of those two combined?
We invest.
Go up, up fast. No, to your left. Yeah, that one. So you're looking at just over, 110,000? You could be saving the district 100,000 from not out of district placing that student. So
Mike's salary. He said he's gonna donate.
even that's done, that's there.
Let me fix anything.
We invest there, we could be technically a student not being a district place.
Yeah.
But keeping a student here is my number one priority too. And probably supporting. Anybody else? Go ahead, Michelle.
That'd be quick.
Michelle Campbell. I am a parent at Wassagaset. I have 2 kids there, and I will have my 3rd one will be in Weymouth Public Schools in 2 years. I'm going to read from this because I'm a very emotional person, so I'm not going to look up. I'm just going to read. As a parent with children in elementary school, this budget is a little terrifying. A 1% increase, even though now I'm hearing that it's just projected, but a 1% increase does not really reflect the needs of our classrooms, of our children. Our kids are experiencing larger class sizes, fewer supports, and reduced opportunities. The idea that my kids could lose more programs, the teachers and staff who know them, support them, and make them feel safe every day is heartbreaking. These are the people who educate and help shape who our children will become. Hearing that they have been spoiled by past revenue is deeply unsettling since we've already been facing cuts for the past couple of years now. Educating our children is not a luxury, it's a foundation of our community's future. Our students should not be the ones paying the price for budget shortfalls. I urge you to remember these faces behind these numbers that you talk about and to prioritize our children's learning, stability, and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes?
Yeah.
Hey, friends.
Hope it's good. You waited a while.
Lisa Wickland, Murphy School, townie, parent, the whole shamil. Many of you sitting at this table have seen me many times before, neighbors, coworkers, former bosses. I'm really first want to say I'm gratified to see how many faces are at this table tonight. I wasn't able to attend the school committee meeting that welcomed our new school committee members. So thank you for stepping up and serving our community. It's always hard to face change and unknowns, but actually some people I had met before through townwide parent council and people that came to speak to the union when they were up for election and stuff. So I feel like I already know you. So that's great. So thank you. Mayor Melise, lovely to see you here at the table. A really nice change from our previous administration to see the actual mayor here sitting with us having these conversations so early in the game. And I really appreciate all the time and effort that everybody in this room, behind me and in front of me, have put in to make sure that this process is as transparent as possible. It's happening earlier in the school year so that we have the opportunity to have everybody make their concerns known before it does become finalized on the paper in a few months. At least we know how we got there when we get there. And I think that that's a refreshing change from some of the things in the past. And to have the faces physically here in the room make a huge difference. So thank you. I just wanted to ask first a quick question. It was brought up that we have a list of state assessments that the town is responsible for to the state. Is that someplace on the website where I might find it to see what those monetary values?
Look up cherry sheets.
Cherry sheets. Okay. I didn't know what I should be searching for. And you said that includes what we have to pay to the MBTA, the charter schools.
Pay it all to the state, for
we pay to
assessment.
Okay. So there would be a list of things that we're having to pay into. Okay.
Yeah.
I just
We put that in our presentation every year too.
Thanks, Brian. I just don't always know where to look for these things. You know, I'm a librarian, so hunting down info is usually my thing, but sometimes they escape me, especially in fiscal stuff, because I don't know what to ask when I'm looking for. I'm a librarian, not a math. Times like
cherry sheets.
Cherry sheets. That's what I was looking for, so I could take a look myself at my leisure and not waste it.
And then there's 2 tabs. There's one for revenue, one for expenses.
Thank you. That is also helpful.
I will, when I do the recap of the budget, I'll link it in the recap too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Also another person I know from many things. Okay, so that was just a quick question I had just for my own information so I can look at these things. I just did want to make a quick note of when we have these double funded things with the idea of trying to keep what we have, I just want to have a quick reminder of what we have lost in the past 2 years that is student facing front forward. I know everybody's gonna talk about the STEAM teachers, and I feel the same way because I'm currently doing what used to be a Unit A STEAM teacher job. So I'm a Unit D person doing 2 previous Unit A jobs for less than $30,000 a year. So I'm a bargain person. So I'm not really afraid of losing my particular position, and that's because I'm a good value for the dollar. But what I am missing is I'm missing that gentleman right there being my assistant principal. The support that he provided to our students and our staff was invaluable in the short but glorious time that we had him in our building. I cannot say enough that Dennis will always have a chair with his name on it in my room.
A little one.
Yeah, little one.
Yep.
The little one that's easily hand sanitized.
Yep.
Easily-
I know which one.
Easily deodorized and all that stuff. Just-
Out of context.
We're missing those assistant principals. People are asking, what did they do in our buildings? They were the first person on the scene in any kind of crisis with a child. They were the ones that had the time and the commitment to be able to be there with that child for as long as it took to de-escalate that child and make that child safe to themselves and to be able to return back to their classmates as soon as possible in a safe way. And he was incredible at it. And we're missing that a lot. We are missing our STEAM specialists. Enough has been said about that. We are missing our Title I support people. My building, I don't know what that money went to fund. I hope it was something useful and good. I'm assuming it is because the people I'm looking at to make those decisions are. But that meant that there were 2 people that came in my building every week to work face-to-face with small group children that were significantly behind on their grade level work. And their sole goal as Title I people supports in our building were to help those children get back to grade level and be the best that they could be in the least amount of stress with the least amount of disruption to their normal daily routine in their classrooms. We're missing those people. We're also missing what we could have hoped for would be more support in our special ed departments. Murphy School houses the sub-separate programs. And right now they are multiple grades. We have 2 classrooms with multiple grades in each classroom and only 1 aide per teacher. So that means when that teacher's in that classroom, she's teaching to 2 or 3 different grade levels with only 1 support person. When does that teacher get to work with just 1 grade by themselves? When does that teacher get to have their preparatory period to prepare all the stuff that they need to differentiate for each student's needs for that class? When do those students get the more individualized help that they're supposed to be getting in that sub-separate program? The sub-separate programs have been, even though I'm just the library ESP, those sub-separate programs have been close to my heart since I started. When I started at Murphy School as a parent for 10 years and now 15 years as an employee, I have seen a TLC program. I have seen what used to be IRC is now SAIL. Those children are amazing. I am so glad that my daughters got to go to school in a school with the sub-separate program. It builds empathy. It builds patience, kindness, and also a feeling of, we're all in this together. And I don't think there's any other better way to teach a human being how to be a better human being than to have to be included with everybody, no matter what their need, physical, mental, emotional. And right now, those teachers in those programs are stretched to the thinnest pot. I mean, we're going to have a huge dropout rate of people in those positions, and they're not easy to replace. And that is telling. And I know that money is money. It is what it is. But we are failing these students now. And I don't use that word failing lightly. Our schools are terrific. Our people are amazing. Our students are amazing. But our students right now are not having their needs met in those classrooms. We have so many kids that are so emotionally dysregulated. They're not getting what they need. We have desks being flipped. We have things being thrown, people being assaulted. And I don't say those words lightly. I don't feel like I should have to come and say that to people who live it, who know it. But I think that people in general need to be reminded that we've lost some things, yeah, but what we need more of and we're not ever going to get because we keep backpedaling on it, trying to just keep our heads above water, is serving our highest need students. Okay. And I'm going to say that the same goes for our ELL students. We have a brilliant ELL teacher. She's young. She's right out of school. She is go, go, go. She is amazing. She also has almost 40 kids many of which don't speak any English at all. And she is their sole outlet to try to get like up to snuff. And those kids are not being served either. And now we're seeing the behavioral backlash of that because those kids are now in a classroom, 23 or 24 other kids. 2 or 3 of them don't speak English at all and don't necessarily speak the same language so they can support each other. They're not getting what they need for individualized attention because there's one teacher in the room with them. How could like one first grade person with 3 kids that speak 2 or 3 different languages give those kids what they need on top of all of the IEP plans and the 504s and just the needs of an everyday kid? So we may have lost our assistant principals, our science specialists, Title I supports, but what we didn't get was anything that was helping out with those other things that were already falling behind. Money is money. We can't make it grow on trees. I know that this team here and the town councilors and everybody is doing everything they can to do the best they can by the whole town. Right? The whole town. It's not just us, it's the whole town. But I would like to restate what everybody else has been saying is that a large part of what makes this town vital is the young families and the children that are here. And if we can't serve them, we might as well go back to the days we had a mayor who came in and she said, or they said, I can't remember now, but you know, that they didn't care so much about the schools. They're going to focus all their attention on the elderly and elder services because that's where the votes were. We're way beyond those days now. I know that this man personally, I know him right here. I know that that's not where he's coming from. I would just like to see the town as a whole be able to embrace that ideology that we sink or swim as a town and as a community and as a society on the quality of what we can provide our young people when they need it the most. I just like to keep everybody reminder out there in here that that's why we're here. That's why you have so many heated people speaking emotionally because it's important. And the social media thing of thoughts and prayers is not going to get us through. Okay, so real hard work. So I appreciate all the hard work already being done. I appreciate that we started this process so early and so transparently. And I appreciate that I can sit here and look around this table and I have personally spoken to so many people already here and I know that these are top quality people doing everything we can. So thank you. And I appreciate people in the electronic. It'll build a kid going away. I think that's
I appreciate the process. So again, like her as a employee, amazing one because my kids had her at Murphy School, talked about positions, and it's not a coincidence that these are the same positions that Principal Costello brought through his budget process. So just it speaks to process. So I appreciate you coming up and speak.
Thank you, Ms. Wickland.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? No? I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Melise.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.